Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, October 28th. I'm calling our town council work session to order. If you please stand with me for the pledge. Thank you. And since we have a few of our leadership team out at the ICMA conference this week, we've got the esteemed Chief Cameron, also Assistant Town Manager, helping us with this meeting. So I will call on you for more comments.
All right, thank you as always. Happy to be here, appreciate it. And I know you already told me that you were not going to take it easy on me today, even though I am a fill-in. Just a few comments on the agenda for today. First off, something you've already very familiar with is a consideration for some planning board appointments. I think a reappointment and a new appointment. Then you have a written decision on the Clark Street townhouses, which I think you're also familiar with. The written decision on the Veterans Guardian PDP with some considerations within that as well, which I think we've got to an agreement on those. The offer of a dedication for Air Tool Drive, which was in your packet as well. And then the request for, under the council updates and discussion, is a request for Reds Corner Social District, which has some obligations the town would be required to work through as well. So that presentation we may be led by planning, and the applicant is here as well. The freight depot lease, there is going to be a couple of changes to that. Our clerk, Beth Robertson, and our communication specialist, Courtney Heaton, will lead that discussion. The applicant is supposed to be here as well for that. He has, as of late yesterday, asked for an additional extension on his original commitment. So that's something we'll talk about when we get to that. Then obviously Director Grieve will have a planning department update. And then Chief Polidori will be here by 4 o'clock or so this afternoon to discuss the golf cart travel in public streets. He's at a meeting that he couldn't be here at the beginning, but he should be here by that time. And then a discussion on East Vermont concerns as far as traffic goes on East Vermont.
That sounds good. I would actually like to add at the beginning of our council updates and discussion, an agenda item, just a town response to the federal government shutdown. There's a couple things that we talked about. You probably saw the red alert come out.
Sorry, I'm to the what? Sorry, slow down just a tiny bit.
Too much coffee?
To the what?
To the government shutdown.
To the government shutdown. Okay, thank you.
To the federal government
maybe
shutdown.
Maybe decaffeinate a tiny bit.
It's half calf.
Well, let's just kind of take a deep breath and tell us what you think.
All right. I tell people my mother has been trying to slow down my talking for 42 years now. I don't think it's going to change. Okay, so if we can get that, we'll just go ahead and put it above everything else on the council updates. I feel like it's probably more important than most of the other things on there. In addition, you'll see Bill Pate's out. He's at a funeral. He should be here when he's able to leave that funeral. All right, moving on to action items. Mac, do we need 2 motions or is 1 motion for both planning board seats? So we're reappointing someone, but we have 2 motions or 1 motion? Okay.
I'm interested in what is the policy in regard to reappointing someone automatically to a second term without hearing from them that that's what they're interested in doing?
We don't have a policy on it, but I know Monica, and she has served and appreciates being on that board. She's involved.
Monica did email us and say she was interested in serving a second term.
Okay, and so is the policy then, should we make a policy? I think a policy here might be really important.
Honestly, the appointment for any planning board positions is going to be so subjective to who's on the council that I think it would be inappropriate to have a policy.
I think our job is to have a policy.
We are policymakers when it comes to policy, yes, but I don't think this one needs one. That's my personal opinion.
Okay, what does everybody else think? Yeah, what were you going to say?
Add one thing, and BJ, please correct me if I'm wrong about this, but our bylaws currently dictate that a person can serve 2 terms. So
Right, I
there is a
understand.
pseudo policy there, in my opinion, is that a person can serve 2 back-to-back terms if they choose to do so. And
Okay.
in this case, the director has heard from
Monica.
Monica. And
So that would be the policy then. If you request a second term, you would automatically fall in line,
still have to be appointed.
still have to be, but you would automatically be appointed over other people who wanted to be appointed. Is that correct? Over new people who wanted
I
to be?
wouldn't say automatic. You don't have to grant it, but there is a policy there that says if they choose to, if they're willing to do a second term, they can.
Based on the wishes of the council.
And it's always based on the wishes of the council. Yes.
And is there then a policy in regard to new appointments?
It would be the same. It is subjective to the council.
It's up to the council. Yeah.
So at this point, we're talking about what was batted around last meeting. Just I want to be real clear about this, and if maybe that should become our policy. At this point, what you're saying is chronologically, the order in which people apply to be on the council or to be on one of the planning boards should be considered the guiding light. Is that correct? Is that
No.
what members of the council think?
No, you're missing the subjective, based on the appropriateness of the applicant, subjective to the council. So if the council finds the applicants to be qualified,
Right?
then yes, they can then appoint.
Then they chronologically are appointed. Is that correct? Is that our policy?
Chronologically? Okay, I'm just trying to understand you, Council. What do you mean chronologically appointed?
If,
I mean, I think that the last person who was appointed, quite frankly, was somebody who was present at the meeting. And I remember, Ms. Gray, that you said you trusted his eyes and you asked us all to appoint him. That was your comment. And you said, oh, I trust your eyes and I can look at people. And I'm thinking that's probably, the most subjective thing we could possibly do. And also not a really great policy.
It's not a
as far
policy,
as a
it's subjective.
notification, just please let me finish. As far as a notification to people who are interested in taking the position. And I think it's fair to people who apply for the position to be told this is the process that we use. And if it is whether or not we trust their eyes, then we should say that. If it is chronologically, those people who are deemed to be qualified would then be appointed in chronological order based on when they applied, that's fine too. If it is everybody who wants to apply for the position has 3 minutes to be heard as to why they should be considered for that position, that's fine too, and then do a vote of council. But I think we're being a little sloppy on the way we're doing it. Not that I didn't think that man's eyes were really trustworthy, but I do think that we need to have a really clear message to the public who are asking to be engaged, and we need to be clear about what our policy is and what our standards are. And I think we are lucky right now in that we have 2 very qualified applicants. I understand that. But I also don't like the fact that we're not clear about what our process is. So that's,
I would support and even second a policy that prohibited and discouraged us from moving one of their friends to the front of the line.
I
That's
agree
a
with
policy
that.
I would second.
I absolutely
Okay.
agree with that. Absolutely. So
so is there a reason that you felt like, I mean, this is clear about 2 people who are in our audience. I disagree we should have a policy. I think that it would be incredibly rude to have someone come and interview and then say, well, we don't think you're qualified. So I think that the policy that we've used, you and I have used for the last 4 years, which is subjective to how the council feels about applicants, is appropriate.
We really don't need a policy to do the right thing.
I don't think so either.
so it is the consensus of the council that we do not need a policy. Is that, Ms.
It
Gray, are
is,
you with?
I agree with that.
I'm kind of leaning into what Assistant Manager Cameron just said, that we do have a policy which allows us to have a person who's already served 1 term to be reappointed to serve a 2nd term. So
Right, I
I
agree
thought
with
that
that.
is a policy. And
That's fine. I agree with you. That's in the bylaws. That's great. If they assert their willingness or even enthusiasm to take on a 2nd term, that's great.
Madam Mayor, is there another action before we do this? Like a adoption of this agenda or anything? Is there something that we have to do? We can just move straight to this?
I think we move straight to
Okay,
this.
I move to reappoint Ms. Monica Brinkley to a 2nd term on the planning board.
All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Director Grieve, Monica is also our ETJ representative, correct?
Sorry, slow down. Less caffeine.
Our ETJ representative.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Is there a motion? We have two applicants, one of which has been sitting on the planning board, where his application has been there for almost 11 months. The other is a newer application. I think that what we had discussed was potentially appointing the person whose application is about to lapse if he was still interested. I have talked to him since then. The other applicant's willing to have his application stay valid, for the full 12 months since he is recent.
I move to appoint Mr. Jeremy Haskell to the open position on the planning board.
I second that.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to, thank you, congratulations. Paul, thank you for your interest. I look forward to finding a position for you.
Thank you.
Hopefully on the planning board, but if something else comes up, we'll reach out.
Thank you.
All right, our written decision for Clark Street Townhomes. Director Grieve?
You will recall at your October regular meeting, you did approve the Clark Street Townhomes. It was a conditional rezoning, and then Clark Street Townhomes also involved a major subdivision preliminary plat. That decision is in front of you. The applicants have been notified of the written decision as well as the conditions, and they have consented to those. We have that in writing, so it's ready for your consideration for the approval of the written decision.
Is there a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 Nay.
Is there something specific that on the written decision that did not go along with our discussion, or is it just the
I think
consistency?
just the fact that the UDO objectives have been addressed. So yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna stick to my guns. We're good.
Can I jump back actually? One question. I just want to double check that the applicant was provided a copy of the written decision before this item coming before the agenda.
The applicant was provided a copy of the written decision as well as the conditions and did consent in writing.
Okay, and secondly, if going forward, if we could include that on the staff report that the applicant was provided, just so there's a record in them.
I think it's a great idea. We can absolutely do that. So what we'll do is following the meeting, we'll prepare the written decision, we'll prepare the conditions, we'll email it to them, we'll get a response. And if for some reason they choose not to respond, we'll simply let you know they didn't respond, but we will let you know that we emailed them to the email that was on file with the application.
Okay. Moving on, we have the written decision for Veterans Guardian, PDP. Is there any discussion or a motion?
I move to approve the written decision for the Veterans Guardian PDP.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Same
Motion
thing,
carries.
was the applicant provided a copy of the written decision before today?
Provide a copy of the written decision as well as the conditions. You will recall that Veterans Guardian, we took it off autopilot and we're flying manual in the clouds at the end of the meeting, and we worked closely with the applicant to make sure that everything reflected what they did. We also reviewed the YouTube video multiple times to make sure we got it exactly right. So
Okay, perfect. All right, the dedication of Air Tool Drive.
very brief summary, as it states in the staff report, the Air Tool Drive has been completed. You'll recall that it was a condition to complete Air Tool Drive in order for the Amazon distribution center, in order for them to open up. They have completed that road. They have done everything the town engineer needs, and so they have requested, they have petitioned for the town to accept that road. It's part of their PDP that ultimately, when the improvements were made, that the town would accept it. It's actually, you can see on the map, it's actually only the middle section of Air Tool Drive. The north section and the south section have already been accepted by the town. It was just that infill section here that prior to the development of the Amazon Center, which is sitting right here, prior to that, the road still needed some work and some improvement. So that's all been done. And town engineers signed off, has verified that.
Director Grieve, I recall we talked about a crosswalk. Was that part of their,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, is that on there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are there any other questions?
I'm interested in, I've read it, and I'm interested in the fact that it calls for the curbs and et cetera, et cetera. Where are we on gutters as a town? It does not call for gutters, and why is that?
Help me, what do you say when you say it doesn't
If
call
it's a
for gutters?
requirement, is it not a town requirement to have gutters in place and consider that as a part of, before someone donates, quote, a piece of
Yeah.
road to us that we then have to maintain, which I understand all that.
Yep.
And I appreciate that curbs have apparently been put back in after having been taken out for
In your,
quite some
what do you,
time.
in your mental, what are you thinking of as a gutter? Because the curb and gutter is essentially curb, and then gutter is the stormwater collection. So you can see in this picture here that the stormwater,
And
the
are there
stormwater
drains?
facilities.
Are there drains, and do we drain someplace other than the middle of the road?
Yes.
Okay.
You can see in this picture that, so for example, where my cursor is,
Yeah.
these are the stormwater inlets, and they're built to town spec for a street cross section.
Is there, can you take me in a little closer on that and show me what you're talking about? Okay, so that's that. All right, so
That's
now
that
that water goes where?
I don't have the plans in front of me, so I don't know exactly where, but it does get managed in accordance with stormwater management plans that are reviewed by the town for compliance with both town and state requirements when we review the plans for construction of the road.
So that, this adoption of this piece of roadway would have been run by the engineering department. James would have seen this.
Yes, great question. So the way this works is that in order for the town to accept this, it has to be built to town specifications. In order for it to be built to town specifications, the contractor had to build it according to plans, and those plans had to go through review by the town of Southern Pines, which they did.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions, though, to make sure it's not just like, hey, they slapped down some asphalt, now we're going to accept it. Yeah.
Appreciate that, thank you.
This road's been here for a minute, and then based on these pictures, it looks like the wear layer is new.
Yeah, it has been improved substantially in the last year. Okay. Yeah.
So we're
Yeah,
not getting a 20, 30-year-old wear layer.
Correct. In fact, maybe of interest to look at, I don't know if you've been out there recently, but yeah, it's a full asphalt with curb and gutter cross section. And if you go actually to, I'm going to see real quick just to compare it to what used to be out there because it's actually pretty interesting. Let's see if Street View will take us to the old way.
No.
So here's May 2024. I don't have an older, there isn't an older version on Street View, but yeah, this has all been improved and you can see an overlay of asphalt has been added. A sidewalk has
Since
been
then,
installed.
since
Yes,
May
since
24.
this, since May of
Okay.
24, yeah.
That was my only concern.
Yeah. In
Thank you.
fact, yeah.
Sentence with in fact, or is that, sorry. Are you done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, is there a motion?
I move to approve the resolution accepting offer of dedication RD-03-25 for the acceptance of a portion of Air Tool Drive.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you. That gets us through the action items. Quickly, the council updates and discussion. The town response to the federal government shutdown was brought to my attention by a resident concerned that when SNAP benefits cut off, which will be on Saturday, that we'll have a increased response or increased need of food. I've talked to the food pantry as well as Paul Murphy with Trinity Church. They are doing a food drive, which Courtney has already gotten out, sent out through our red alerts, and is going on our website.
It will go on our website and it's already on our Facebook.
Okay, it's on our Facebook and will go on our website, which has a list of donation sites for those who are able to donate. I know that Trinity has a need of volunteers. And in addition to that, there will be pickup locations and times for anybody who is in need of food. And then in addition, I think Brandon had something, you had a recommendation.
Yeah, I think that because of the issues concerning the federal government shutdown and the propensity of employees that are that live locally that are employed by the federal government, I would like to recommend that we suspend any further utility cutoffs until we get through this period. And in addition to, one, to suspend any further late fees regarding late payments of their utility bills. And then secondly, I know that Councilwoman Gray has worked on this. I would like to also consider doing away with late fees on utility bills in perpetuity unless we find that it creates some effect that we don't intend. I think that some folks that are behind on their water bill, I believe the late fee is a little bit like kicking them while they're down. And I think we should just do away with it effective immediately. And I would make a motion to sort of restate it make a motion to suspend any further utility shutoffs during this federal government shutdown and to halt any further late fees in perpetuity.
And I would be interested in hearing from the water department and the people who, go ahead, you want to say something, I can tell you do, go ahead. No, I'm looking at you.
Okay.
Mike, sorry.
I was just going to verify clarification. So or just clarifying statement. You want to suspend the utility cutoffs on anybody and everybody, correct?
Everybody,
No-
yeah.
No.
Hard
no-
to qualify who that is, so we'll just do a, right.
Verifying
Yeah.
that, I'm not misquoting that. That would include utility fees and any late fees. So you want to cease late fees until, I know there's two things there, until
There is.
the federal government
Reopens, and
opens back up and/or evaluate, I know we've discussed this before, do we
Yeah.
go with late fees altogether? Is that
yeah.
correct?
So if we want to put a date on the suspension of cutting off or suspending services from someone who is late on their bill, I think hopefully, maybe we just put January the 1st, suspend cutting off any utilities until January the 1st. We'll revisit it in December if, hopefully, the government's open back up before January the 1st. But the late fee is just across the board, partially as a result of the government shutdown, but also partially as a result of just,
I will, just for information, the last 2 years, and I'm doing this off the top of my head without going back and looking at the last 2 years, we have actually not done cutoffs in the month of December anyway, just because of all this, we pushed that forward. So that's not necessarily an uncommon request or practice, but obviously we can evaluate these things and get with water billing and make those changes. The do away with late fees altogether, that's going to take a little bit of research, because I feel like you would want to see the impact of that
Yeah.
from a financial standpoint. I'm not saying for or against, but I think you want to see that full picture.
I feel like we have, and I don't remember it being a lot.
Well, I'm sorry.
And I think it's, the impact is far less for the town than the impact of the person who is trying to pay their bill. And just from a very human perspective, I just like to move away from that if we can.
A couple of conversations with Town Manager Parsons. I guess it's been a couple of weeks back now, regarding those $6 late fees. We were looking at alternatives to collecting, utility payments that would make it easier for the people of Southern Pines. And we even looked at the possibility of maybe pushing back the dates. Reagan realized we looked at a calendar for the month in terms of what as you said, Councilwoman Peterson, you mentioned the finance department. We were looking at how they basically handle the month in terms of what they do and when they do what they do. But the last thing that we had discussed was the $6 payment. And I don't, Reagan's not here, so I don't want to,
$6 late fee.
late fee, yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't want to just, put out there, but basically, he said that would be doable.
I think it is.
Yeah, so
don't-
just to mention that, but of course, yeah, I understand.
So we can make that effective next month on the late fee, but
So I wonder, would you entertain, I mean, you obviously are dealing with two different issues here. And I think everybody's on board with waiving during the government shutdown. And January 1 gives us a hopeful date that that's certainly over with. But the other is going to have an impact, as you're well aware, Ms. Gray, on finance and on planning and on water department and on the extra folks who come in and deal with that. I'd love to hear from people within the water department and Tess and Reagan and the folks who've been involved in that. So I'd love for that to be on the work
I
session.
appreciate your concern.
Yeah.
That's why we're all on the council together. I in no way desire to see our town fall to shambles because of taking away something that we've been collecting for a number of years.
Right.
According to Manager Parson, that $6 payment was something that had been started many, many years before. And with his own lips, he said it will not
Right.
damage us financially, fiducially. So
I remember during the budget sessions, it's negligible. And like I said a while ago, I think the impact for the citizen is far greater than the impact to our finances.
And I,
The impact positively to our citizen is far greater than the negative impact to the finances of the town.
I think that was one of the first things I asked. I said, well, if we take away the $6, is this going to
Right.
really put us in a jam? And
No.
he said, no, it would not. So.
yeah, I would go as far as to say that it's going to cost more in staff time to come in and do the presentation than it would that we're giving up on
Well,
the
I'd love
late
to hear
fees.
from staff as far as the impact. I would love to not just assume, and I would love to hear from.
Would you be okay moving forward with this and with that to be on the agenda going forward? If it's an issue, that we can revisit it then, but I
I would,
just,
go ahead.
I would just rather move forward so that there's not another $6 in a few weeks.
I am interested in pursuing your idea until the 1st of January. I agree with that. And then I'm interested in hearing and making an educated decision about moving
Okay.
forward. That's what I'm interested in.
I have also talked to Chief Cameron, Reagan Parsons, Deborah and I don't know if you were with me when I met with the fire or the water department, but it's been over a year ago. And at that time, it was not an issue either.
Clarify one thing. I would have guessed we would probably apply this effort towards residential water bills rather than business.
And again, I think fine tuning it, I have no problem with the idea, but I think fine tuning it and making sure we're not sloppy in what we're asking for is really good.
Yeah, I think
And
I'm
I'm
giving a
all
lot of thought.
about,
I can't quote to you how much money it was. It was negligible though.
I don't have that number either, but it's not significant.
Right.
And whether we do something in a work session or January starts the beginning of our budget process, whether we bring you something during that budget process
Right.
and say, hey, this is what would have happened if we hadn't been doing this the last year or 2 years, which you would be able to see it.
that would be
within the near
really
future.
helpful. I would like to make an educated decision, yeah. So I'm up for, yes, absolutely, waive late fees, non-payment, as long as the government shutdown lasts, or until January 1, whichever occurs last even.
Yeah.
One
Fine.
clarification for me, for my notes. So the January 1 is we revisit it in January 1 if the government was still shut down, or if government reopens if they open on December 1, we go back.
I'm still okay with saying
More
January 1.
Yeah, I need
That
to
makes it
make sure that's-
cleaner, and we don't have a work session in December, so I think that makes it cleaner for everybody.
I think the what is post January 1 or maybe right before January 1, unless there's the consensus of council is to move on with just getting rid of the late fee, which I'm fine moving forward with. But it sounds like if we go Ms. Peterson's route, it's going to be, the only thing we revisit is whether the $6 late fee kicks back in January.
Right.
I'm comfortable doing away with it now. If the consensus of council is the same, I will remake that motion.
Yes, I'm definitely comfortable with it.
I think regardless of what you do, it needs to be in 2 different motions. You have 2 different issues going on here, so.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, I'll make it in 2 motions.
Mac, do you need motions? Do we need motions on both these items?
Yes, 2 different ones.
2 motions?
So the suspension one is,
Okay.
which is the one I'm really asking about. I understand the late fee, the suspension one, we're going to, go ahead.
Suspend any disconnection of our water services until January the 1st.
Residential.
Water services until January the 1st, 2026, as a result of the federal government shutdown. And also a suspension of late fees until January the 1st, 2026.
Okay.
Yeah, Mac.
You need 2 different motions.
Mac, what do you want to say?
Your meeting in January would be, the first meeting would be the 13th. If you literally peg it to January 1st,
You have to have a special meeting to address it, right?
that means that
So we need,
suspension would end on the 1st, but you wouldn't meet again until the 13th.
Well, I was thinking the meeting would happen before the 1st in December to discuss
we don't have a
any,
work session.
well,
Your December meeting is the 9th,
Right, that's not.
not a workshop meeting.
So would you entertain an amendment to your motion to make it January 13th?
You want to pick January 13th.
13th, yes.
Yeah. That also.
I'll make the second motion on the.
Well, hold on, because it seems like we need to vote on this one first.
Yeah.
But But that does not waive,
Yes. Until January 13th.
but bounce check fees would be the responsibility of the person who wrote the bad check. And that is not the town taking responsibility
Yeah,
for
I'm
those,
not- I'm not-
any of those fees. Yeah, right. Okay, just want to make sure that we're,
I second.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Would you like to make a second motion?
I move to eliminate our late fee on water bills, residential water bills, going forward on January the 1st, 13th, 2026.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
opposed unless and until we make an informed decision, and I don't feel like we've made one. I just want to hear the evidence about why we should do it, not a bunch of hearsay, so, thank you.
Did you say you want, say that again, Councilwoman Peterson? Oh, no, I got
Yes,
you.
Mac.
You said you,
Mac,
It's a yes.
Don't vote it's a yes.
I'll just say no, just because y'all, it's already passed, so.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I'm voting for, so, thank you.
Mac, what are you trying to say?
Mr. Pate needed to either vote yes or no.
Okay.
Yes,
Gotcha.
no sense staying on this.
Right. So it's a 3-2 vote then as far as making that a long-term,
I do want to clarify one thing. I understand your concerns of being informed. I feel like I made that motion and that vote being informed.
thank you.
I did, but I just said you want to know why? Did you say you just wanted to know why we wanted to do that? Is that what you said?
No, I'm fine. I'm fine. It's passed. We're good. Water over the dam.
Okay, moving on to now our actual first item under council updates and discussion, which is the request for Red's Corner to have a social district. Director Grieve.
Good evening, members of council. PJ Grieve with the Town of Southern Pines Planning Department. At the end of July, I was contacted by a gentleman sitting in the audience, Mr. Scott Bertrand.
Hey, Scott.
Scott contacted us because he is opening a bar at, if you look on the map here, half of the building over here, which is Paddock Bar. And when he went to the state of North Carolina and visited with them about his permitting, they informed him that one of the challenges he was going to have is that if he opens a bar in this building here, and then also has a bar over here in this building here, which is the building at Red's Corner, that a patron buying a drink here would not be able to walk over to Paddock Bar, and a patron buying a drink at Paddock Bar would not be able to walk over to Red's Corner. And the reason is because these are two separate properties owned by separate entities, and therefore the state law does not allow for a person to take a drink and cross a property line to another location. One way that things can be done is if it was all one property, you can have a common area entertainment permit, but this won't work because it's two separate properties. And so the folks at the state said to him, he said, well, how can I get this done? And the folks at the state said, well, your local municipality can do a social district wherein you adopt a boundary, and anywhere within that boundary now falls under some rules and regulations about adopting social districts. You have heard about social districts in the past when it comes to doing one in town. Pittsburgh has one, Greenville, North Carolina has one, Aberdeen has one, and these social districts have a variety of rules. So Scott wanted to see if the town would create a social district around this area that he wants people to be able to walk back and forth. And so he submitted him and I spoke on the phone, and I said, well, this is really something that, it's not like the planning director approves, and so I said, the best thing you could do is probably put together a pitch to give it to the town council, because this will be a council decision whether or not to direct staff to move forward with the tasks. So what I would like to do is have two things presented to you. The first would be, you'll see in your packet, obviously you had a staff report that sort of lays out what the requirements are. Our office put together, you might say, a checklist of what things have to be done. And I would like my colleague, Mason Maddox, who prepared the staff report, to run down those things real quickly. He has a PowerPoint. He'll keep it very brief. But it's basically just an awareness of what does it mean for the town of Southern Pines to adopt a social district. And then I'd like to hand it over to Scott, and obviously he can say whatever he would like about his application materials and take it from there. Does that sound good to the council?
That sounds great.
Okay, wonderful. I'll turn it over to Mason.
Mason Maddox, Planner 2 with the town. I did want to note for the record and everyone's clarification, this is, of course, this would not be a zoning overlay. But planners are really, really good at paperwork. So it's like when I helped you all with the skateboarding ordinance amendment. So, and it's not uncommon for this to fall to planning departments to oversee. Um, Your idea of what a social district is probably correct. Not much change there. I did want to go over the state requirements. They're a bit of a oddity by state statute to have, not in a positive or negative way, just their own sort of creature, if you will. I highlighted the continued obligations that the town would have to participate in, and then the ongoing, probably heavier lift, if you will, would be the enforcement. In plain speech, there's got to be signs, management plan, ABC registration. Those two items are not subject to change if there's no differences. So those are things that in theory could be done once and left alone for years to come if they're working. Special cups have to be made, not a big issue. Since this is only proposed to go between two businesses, the non-alcoholic selling business part of state statute would not apply. That's really if you have a social district covers all of downtown and you have a business that sells drinks, maybe alcoholic drinks, that does not want to participate in the social district, that's an option for them to do so. The biggest thing is, of course, enforcement via town police. If we're directed to move forward with this, I'd love to talk, would need to talk with Chief Polidori over this. So Mr. Bertrand has proposed the sign. That's kind of the first big step. And then, of course, the district boundary, if you will. Those are the biggest things here. Proposed hours of operation, the correct number for the police department and ALE. So that's really what that requirement is. I did speak to a couple other municipalities about them, can answer a few questions if you have any. Otherwise, I really focused in on Pittsboro just because I think they do their thing very well. This is their management plan. It's 8 pages. It's pretty minimal. It would be at the council's discretion to name the departments that are responsible for managing this. So that's the most important detail I think I want to convey to you all today. There's nothing set in stone that says planning and the police will oversee this or planning and public works. Of course, local law enforcement would be required to go out and investigate if there are any issues. But other than that, we have a little bit of wiggle room as to who's actually responsible for overseeing this. Just some more examples from their packet, nothing too crazy there. And again, no formal actions requested this time, but we are eager to get some marching orders after I turn this over to Mr. Bertrand to explain a little bit more. All right, Mr. Bertrand, if you're ready.
Go back to a couple slides to one more. That one.
Yep.
Are they going to be required to have special cups?
Yes, that is a state statute requirement. The cups have to say that this was purchased at the, say, for example, Red's Corner Bar.
Separately labeled to identify which licensee is providing it, and they need to be non-glass, which is heartburn for me, but I understand it.
Well, I mean, the social districts that I've heard of, and I understand here because of the ABC, it's really ABC permit, right?
Yep.
More than boundary.
Yes.
Like ABC permit for paddock, ABC. All right, and so the social districts that others have told me about is when it's usually in town rights of way, going from one business to another, like down a sidewalk, and that's where the special cup requirement comes in. And I guess this is an unintended consequence here, where you're not actually leaving the property.
You are leaving the property because the area within the red boundary is 2 separate properties.
Yeah, but underneath, rented by the same people?
Yeah, I mean, there's no
That's what I
right of way
mean.
between them.
And it's our conditional zoning district, basically.
Yeah.
So it's with all in the same boundaries.
Yeah.
And the responsibility all falls.
Yeah,
to me.
I get it. I just feel like that's one of those unintended. I get the purpose for it. I don't get the purpose for it here. But anyway, you're fine with it. That's fine.
Well, it's it's just a limited mechanism that is really available to us. So if I was
Yeah.
going to characterize it, it would be a limited social district within the confines of, and it's really just a dovetail off of what we were doing last January, which was to combine these 2 properties and evaluate the zoning of it and put together all the guidelines around it. And it was all under the auspices that I would just go to the state and then they would issue these licenses to us. Instead, they kicked it back to us here locally. And so the only mechanism I can come up with where people are not upset at Reds is saying, well, tell Scott I'm not going to buy beer anymore because I have to, buy one here, but I have to finish it before going inside. And there's a lot of discourse between my staff and people to the point where I'm like, we're not doing that. we're not even open to the public unless there's a small event in there.
Yeah.
And then that's a booking. So what we'd like to do as we're getting into the cold season is support the local businesses, the food trucks, allow people to go in there, but they have to go out and order. It's just a lot more flexibility.
So operationally, though, everyone that buys a drink has to have a special cup, or just the people that are going back and forth between them?
As it's written in the staff report, is if it's served by a licensee on property, then we get away from glasses. We're going to have to do plastic, and it's a maximum of 16 ounces. So I really like
Because
the,
you do aluminum, right? Cups.
yeah, non-glass, right, yeah. So we would love to have the glass stay, but I think it was because they were envisioning people walking up and down sidewalks on public streets. You don't want to have all those shards everywhere. So to me, operationally, there's going to be very little difference, except that I do have to buy a bunch of plastic glasses and the customer experience gets diminished a little bit. In terms of responsibility and management plan, whatever you guys want to adopt, I can take a stab at creating what those are. But it's, to me, we are in the active business of doing this already. And this is a paperwork exercise and a signage and cupping exercise to fulfill ultimately what we were trying to do last January.
And those plastic cups also have to have the warning on them, right? Okay.
Yeah, you drink responsibly, must be 21.
21,
Yeah,
right.
and name the actual place that you got it from.
Right.
Yep.
So here's a question for you, and then it's coming, I'm throwing the ball to you in a second, Mac. If I buy a drink at business A and I walk over to business B and finish consuming my business A, then I'm throwing out my A cup and getting a B cup, right?
Yep.
Is that right? Okay. Where do you think the liability, God forbid, if an accident happens, if somebody leaves, and a liability often follows with an institution that served the alcohol, where do you think the liability starts and stops?
To me, it doesn't change what we're doing today. And I'm trying to answer you directly here, but.
Is it the most recent cup? Okay, great. He's gonna take you off the hook. You want to be taken off the hook?
If you have an offering, sure, please bring
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
North Carolina's dram shop law only applies if the person is under 18, drunk, and causing harm. And in this case, if they're careful about serving only people who are 21 and above, it's not, you don't have to know whose cup it was.
So if somebody's 19 and they have a fake ID and they get a drink at business A and they walk into business B, does business B have a responsibility to again card and assess the fake ID?
Yes.
Okay,
We do that.
okay.
aggressively.
So that liability
They are
then
two
goes to,
separate licensees.
and if we have an underage drinker who then leaves and injures someone, who's on the hook? And is the town on the hook for does the town have a liability that goes with making a decision to make this a conditional?
Second question first. The
Okay,
town
great.
has no liability.
Okay, go ahead.
And
First session.
under the dram shop law, the last institution serving an overserved patron is the one most likely to be on the hook. But as he will probably tell you, it is very difficult to figure out
Right.
where someone got their drinks.
That's going to be really hard. And I understand your concern and your confusion, and I don't disagree with what you're trying to do, but I also understand how difficult that's going to be made as far as liability, which is inevitably the way this thing is going to come back to haunt us.
It won't haunt the town.
It won't haunt the town, but it will haunt the businesses who are fighting within each other as to who served the last drink to the overserved person, right?
Both businesses, both licenses are under the same entity.
Right.
Same
Right.
liability policy. So we made it as simple as we can to keep it all in-house. It really, in terms of the same staff, the same training, the ALE officer, we bring them in, talk to the staff. They actually have to get a certificate going through an online training through the ABC. That includes notating the fact that if you have an overserved person and you serve them, it's even worse than serving an
Right.
underage person. So,
Right, exactly.
And the nature of Reds in general, if you remember, is people only visit us for about a half hour to an hour and a half. Our average customer spend, if you will, 2 drinks, maybe.
Right.
And so we're there for people to relax and be outside and enjoy their people. And then it's a,
And I think it's a
Guideline
huge
that's-
asset. I'm not arguing with that. I'm trying to think down the road as far as how that's going to come back to haunt us or haunt anybody legally, or here's our expert right here as far as what's going to happen with enforcements and what potential issues you see. I'd be really interested in hearing from for the police chief also.
Thank you. From the enforcement side, it would start, whether it's just a social district at Scott's Place or if we end up doing one all around town, it really should start with the management, because as the cups are leaving the property, it then falls onto the next business they're going into. If somebody at the bar saying, wait, you have cup A, you can't bring cup A in. And as far as leaving the boundary, that's the difficult part, I think, for this, just because it's not a whole downtown area. It's one section.
Right.
So I don't know how you would have somebody posted around your property, making sure somebody doesn't walk out of your little social district.
Right.
So again, enforcement would overall, based off the general statute, the town ordinance, if passed, would be the police department.
What sort of enforcement are you currently called upon, just from a practicality sense, as far as police at Red's Corner? Is that a place where you are typically stationing someone during busy
Honestly,
times?
without looking at our numbers in CAD for that, I couldn't state, but I don't think we get a whole lot of calls over there for much.
So you would only go if you had a call?
Yes, typically.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Let's get a couple other people's questions. Bill?
It's sort of along those same lines, and that you're here and have the microphone. I want you to succeed. I mean, I hope we can figure this out. My only question is, traditionally, I see, as you mentioned, social district, it's a bigger area. It's multiple downtown businesses. We're kind of doing this for one business, although you did mention the food trucks themselves are different businesses, so maybe it's more than one. But I don't want to unduly burden your department, totally unnecessarily and to a great degree of hassle for like a one business district, if that makes sense. It doesn't sound like that would be the case if this were to move forward. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. That was the
I don't
case.
believe so. Just talking to Chief Chavis in Aberdeen, before this was even on the agenda, we were just talking about it, and they don't have a whole lot of problems in downtown Aberdeen with their social district. Every now and then you get somebody walking around, outside the district where they're not supposed to be drinking. People get a little rowdy. That's what happens. It happens downtown anyway, every weekend night. I don't see it being a terrible problem for us, to be honest with you.
Yeah, this seems different. I mean, we're using the term, but this ask to me just seems completely different than the discussion I would have if we're talking about downtown social district.
Correct.
They're like not the same thing.
Yeah, some time ago, we drafted it's probably when the statute passed, a boundary for downtown for a social district, and it was very large. It did not include Red's Corner area simply because of crossing over Morganton Road. But as for what Mr. Bertram's asking for, I don't see it being a big problem.
Ms. Gray, do you have questions?
I had some concerns, but I think Councilwoman Peterson kind of addressed it, and with Attorney McCarley's comments, I'm kind of clear. And then, of course, Mr. Bertram, what you said about not serving someone who's already overserved. That was my only concern, because I'm figuring if I get a drink in one spot, y'all know I don't drink, so that's funny. I get a drink in one spot, and then, I want to get some more, and I'll say, I'm going to go to the next spot because they haven't seen me, but the responsibility to not necessarily serve me because I've already been overserved that's been my only concern. So, and then hearing from Chief Polidori that there really hasn't been a lot of issues in that area. That's just.
I would like to add one thing, and it would help the police department tremendously with your staff helping us with people trying not to walk out of your boundary, because then it becomes a bigger problem for us when they're wandering off the social district and up Old US 1.
What's the difference now? I mean, it's not a social district, but if somebody walked off with their glass now, is there really any difference?
Open container. It's open
Okay.
container violation, yeah.
I've got two questions for you. Right now, your map is up there. If someone buys a drink at the bar or at the paddock, I guess, where are they allowed to go on the property? Because people, there are tables outside, like people are drinking outside.
That's right.
Where's the property line? Like, do people know how far they can go?
Yeah, we have signs for the Reds Beer Garden, if you will, that say no alcohol should be past this point.
Okay.
And then the paddock right now, it's just within the building envelope. So as soon as you go open the door, you can't, bring that outside.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do is allow them to free flow. And then in terms of, dispatching calls and everything, I mean, it's a 2-minute response time from them, and it's been wonderful. We have their officers there pretty regularly getting food and things, cookies and stuff. So we've got a great relationship. I also see you on the cameras late at night just posting on in our parking lot. So we love that. And we've got a great working relationship. And I've called recently over somebody that was outside of us, and it was just an easy conversation. We worked right through it. And so we're trying to be responsible about all this, but then also make it, achieve what we're trying to back in January.
So that my second question, I think my biggest concern is when you go to the reusable plastic, what people suddenly feel like is that they can walk off property. It's like, well, this cup is now mine because they know you're not going to reuse it. So they put it in their car or they walk off.
Mm-hmm.
Can you use reusable plastic for the social district drinks?
That's what we've seen for like the US Open, is those ones that'll go through the dishwasher and things that are a little bit more robust. And that's probably what we'd like to do anyways.
Yeah, I mean, that would
yeah.
save plastic and prevent people from feeling like they can walk off.
Yeah, I mean, we buy a ton of glass just that breaks through regular course of business. So we're used to having to buy that product, but this will be incurring a cost if people are throwing them out or whatever. So we want to preserve those.
Okay.
So I noted on the guidelines that you, maybe this is a question for you. I'm not sure you leaned on the Pittsburgh guidelines, but I noted that their closing time was 10 p.m., which I tend to agree with more than 11 p.m. Would you be amenable to considering a closing time of 10?
So we went through with the conditional zoning,
Right,
and we just put hours that we think would be the maximums of the spectrum.
right.
So, Coffee Hut open at 6 a.m. and then maybe an evening event like the 30th Pinecrest reunion going past a little bit past 10, right? So we said 6 to 11 p.m. In practice, we've played with in the hot summer night, staying open until 9:45, and everybody turns into a pumpkin. Me
Right.
getting
No, that's my thought.
done. Everybody goes to bed pretty early around here. So in practice, I don't see this happening very often. I have it to 11 for those unique one-off experiences.
Right, would you be amenable to shifting that to 10, though?
Before you agree to that, I think you might want to ask the rest of the council if they would encourage that, because I honestly think 11 o'clock is fine.
There's really nothing residential around it, so I'm fine with, immediately around it, I'm fine with the way your current time.
Fine with 11 as well.
Bill, do you have any input on 10 versus 11? Okay. So right now, staff, what you all would like from us is either you'd like a head nod on, yes, continue to do the research on how this is going to work, or no, we're not interested? Is that what you're looking for?
If the town council would like staff to continue working with Scott on the creation of a social district as proposed, I think what we would like is the guidance that we will facilitate receiving from Scott the required materials. We will review them, put them in front of the town attorney to make sure that they check the boxes for state statutory requirements. For example, the management plan, the signs. Obviously, there was a draft of the sign in there, but just making sure everything is good to go. And then we will facilitate putting it on your agenda in the future with an ordinance to create it and following the process. Sort of like an applicant for anything else, we'll facilitate the process and make sure the paperwork is correct. But Scott has indicated he's willing to do the heavy lifting in terms of creating the management plan and things like that. So we'll work with Scott and hopefully we'll have it to you in a month or two.
Major, what about the oversight of the entire social district? I mean, after if everything is approved and it goes on, so who's going to be responsible for oversight? I think that was something that was.
Yeah, primarily the ongoing, Mason did reach out to some other social districts just to learn, hey, now that it's created, what is the ongoing, and it's mostly just interacting with officers when occasionally when someone takes a beer, a drink off the premises, say someone's walking over to rec room and they just ignore the signs, and then, that's the only time when something would come up. But in terms of ongoing work by the planning department that facilitated it, I'll let Mason speak to what he learned when he called other jurisdictions briefly.
The very short version, to use a metaphor, and speaking to other jurisdictions, is that for something about this size, planning and Mr. Bertrand would wind the clock and then hand it to really the police department for occasional enforcement as needed. That's the short version.
I think I asked this earlier when I was at your office, but is there any other way for him to function as one single business without a social district? As far as like people being able to, if I buy a drink, I'm sitting outside and it starts pouring down rain, I can't walk to the paddock because
Yeah,
it's a different
if
property,
the
right?
properties were recombined and the property boundary went away, then he could get a common area entertainment permit, because that would now be like any other property. We have multiple businesses like a strip mall. But I let him speak to whatever constraint is not allowing the recombination to take place. Other than that, nothing to my knowledge would allow you to cross property lines with an open container.
So I want to touch on that if I can. Will you have something else?
No, that's all.
And maybe this is a Matt question. So I see personally, and I'm sure there's something in the legislation that I haven't looked at, because I haven't looked at any of it, but common leasing doesn't, like, I guess I struggle with the boundary line, because if I've leased this property and I've leased this property and they're adjacent to it, I don't know why that would, I knew it.
It's not just the boundary line.
Okay. ABC permit. Yeah, okay,
The rest of this answer is that it's also what your permit says.
okay.
For example, the places that you're familiar with that have outdoor dining, that is defined as part of their permit premises. I doubt ABC would give you a permit for that whole area as outdoor premises.
Okay.
So you can't cross the boundary line, and you have to have outdoor areas defined as part of your permit.
That's right. One of their solutions was to put vertical barriers everywhere throughout REDS and have it all defined. And that is not at all what we're trying to do here. And the other option would only be to extinguish the paddock bar license, and then we'd have to serve across the property line on that patio in through a cutout in the wall and create commerce that way. And it's like the most elegant solution is doing this light social district here, which I hope wouldn't even be newsworthy. This was just like,
Yeah.
hey, we're just an addendum to our CZ and we're done.
If we're
Yeah, just I'm sorry to interrupt. It's not an addendum to a conditional zoning. It has nothing to do with zoning
Too much,
whatsoever.
okay.
Yeah, it has zero. I just want to be really clear about that. It's not a 160D zoning issue. It's actually a completely different section of statute, and it's just there. It's not related to zoning.
I'm fine with staff continuing on. That's all I have.
Ms. Peterson,
Fine with the staff continuing, yeah.
Bill, Deborah. Okay, yeah, I think we're all fine with staff moving forward in
For
a way
10
that helps,
o'clock.
helps your business function as one full business. Not that it was brought up, but to go ahead and say my piece on it, I really don't have any interest in downtown being a social district. So for what that's worth, if anyone else wants to weigh in on it, no, you're welcome to take this opportunity.
No, I agree, because to me, that's a totally different discussion. And so I just wanted to kind of be clear, as you said, non-newsworthy. I don't want this to be heard as like, oh, we're, open to discussing broader social districts, because
Right.
it's two different things.
I am interested in taking just a very brief break and finding out who the gentleman is behind the chief and whether he's working on a badge and having him introduce
He is.
himself.
I met him on a hiking trail.
Talk to us. Who are you and why are you here? Because you are related.
junior?
You are related to
I
this
know
guy,
he
and you
is,
guys
but I
have an
mean, is he
incredible
junior?
press agent. Every time you guys succeed athletically, you have this incredible, you great coverage in the paper. Great to have you here. Are you working on a badge or anything right now?
I'm working on my Tenderfoot ring.
Excellent.
Good for you, baby. That's wonderful.
Congratulations. That's
Yeah.
great. Do you wish you could see, because you're welcome to move so you can see what's going on the screen. I see you kind of leaning out. So move on over here. These people won't bite.
He moved. He moved. It's okay.
Let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break. We'll come back at
Precious.
4:10. Thank you, guys. It's 10 after, if we can come back to the meeting. Okay, welcome back. ATM, Cameron, would you like to delay the freight depot lease a little bit longer, or do you want to go ahead and start?
Let's go ahead and start, and we
Okay.
can, we're good. Next thing on the agenda is the freight depot lease, which is at 305 Northwest Broad Street. Many of you refer to as 305 Trackside, which we had a lease that was good up until January 6th of this year. That lease is no longer in place. We have went through and made some upgrades to the building to make that building what we think is more ready to be leased or rented out. We're going to break this up into two things. We have done some advertising, and we're going to let Clerk Beth Robertson and our communication specialist Courtney Heaton talk about how we got to the point we are now, what we did to advertise this, and some of the results from that.
Okay.
And then we'll actually talk about what we have in front of us tonight as far as the lease proposal.
Beth and Courtney, thank you for being here with us.
Okay, we were tasked to put together an RFP for the freight building. We started with getting, obviously, the required information, and then Courtney took over. She put together a news release. If you've read your memo, she put together a news release on September 15th via the town news release on our website and the Sunshine List subscribers. She sent it to everyone. She also sent it to local organizations and businesses. The Sway published an article on September 18th highlighting the opportunity, and the pilot ran a feature on September 22nd. Emphasizing the depot's history and the town's vision for its next chapter. It was also on our Facebook page. She took out Facebook ads for it, all of our social media sites, and then continuously on our website, there were flyers put out. We held a open house on October 2nd, an open house for anybody who wanted to come and see it in person. And we closed it on October 16th, I believe, for submissions. At that time, we'd only received one. We had multiple inquiries, but we only received one actual submission for a proposal. And that was by Kevin Drum. And it was for the Seaboard Speakeasy. And
Well, I think so. Chief Cameron said you want to divide it into two pieces.
Yeah, I want to talk about Kevin's presentation next and where we're at. Do you have any questions about the process that we went through? Obviously, our goal was to say, hey, this is obviously a council decision. Anyone that asked questions, our message to them was we felt like the council wanted something that complemented downtown, something that fit with our downtown. We didn't necessarily, not that you wouldn't look at it, we didn't necessarily feel like you were looking to return it to its former glory of being a storage building. So we've tried to paint that picture to where we would have some good conversation. And as Beth said, we did receive several inquiries and phone calls, and we received one submission, which was in your packet, and that was for a speakeasy. Manager Parsons and I met with Kevin Drum on Thursday of last week on site to discuss the building and to look at it and hear his vision firsthand, because he wanted to go in and get some measurements. His initial proposal was to be in there in January. Since then, we've received 2 emails from him. I actually spoke with him by phone today, and I actually thought he was going to be here at 3 o'clock today, but he's not. So his initial proposal, he wanted to make some changes to. After talking with some of his design folks and going through some of the process as far as bars need to meet some health department requirements, he felt like January was not going to work. So after discussion with his staff, he wants to push that date back to June 1 of 2026. And so I have some limited information. He sent another email this afternoon. The concept is pretty much the same. The only thing he actually asked to change was under the financial proposal. He asked the lease rate to stay the same, but instead of doing a 5-year initial lease, he wants to do a 2-year initial lease with a 5-year renewal option is what he's asking for. And that would start, according to what he's written, June 1 of 2026.
When would we need to make a decision on that?
That we've not put any deadlines as far as when to make a decision. I think that's totally up to this group.
The RFP that the town put out, was there finance terms included in that? What were those?
There were. The finance terms is $3,000 a month lease plus utilities.
But term, like how long?
It was initially a 5-year initial lease.
That was what we requested.
That is correct.
Right.
We request a 5-year initial lease with a renewal option of 5 years.
Mike, could you repeat what it is that he wants?
Yes, he wants to, instead of a January 1 start date, he wanted a June 1 start date, June 1 of 2026. Instead of doing a 5-year initial lease, he wants a 2-year initial lease. And he did mention this to when Reagan and I met with him. And his 2-year initial release is he feels like two years is better for him than 5 years because he wants to make sure that his idea, his vision works. He didn't want to be tied into something for 5 years if it didn't work like he wanted to. That would be his vetting process is what I would call that.
And then 5 years for renewal?
Yes, 5 years. So 2 years with an additional 5 years behind that.
Is there anything preventing us from renting the space out in the meantime for like single night rentals or weekend rentals? I mean, like the same as what we do for the Douglas Center or?
From a structural standpoint, no, there's nothing that would keep us from renting that out as is, other than is staff. And as you know, we've talked about before, we already manage some rental stuff. We've got our Parks and Recs folks handle rentals as it is. The struggle with that, not that it cannot be overcome, would be just the fact that needing somebody there probably when it opens, needing somebody there when it closes, or working out those details. We already have some experience with that. If you know, we rent out like things like the DCC and those things.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've had people ask about doing weddings there in the year that it's been closed, and I feel like if the option were there to rent it out and we figure out how much it costs us to have the staff, we could at least cover staff plus our expenses.
Correct. I'm sure if directed, we could study that and figure out what the hourly or weekend or day rate would be. We could obviously.
In his proposal of June 1, 26, is that when he wants to start his upfit?
So that's the kind of question we just got this information while we're in the meeting, so I don't have that, but that's one of the questions we want to go back and ask. Like, look, are you wanting to have it set up before June 1, or is June 1 when you start your upfit?
Yeah.
So I don't have the answer to that question. It is a question staff has also, though.
Okay. Are there other questions specific to the lease proposal?
I like the concept. I like the sign, if you will. I like the concept of a jazz speakeasy. I'm not 100%. I just need to think more about the lease terms. I understand the reasoning behind it, but it's also a little bit of, town, you take the risk on me. So I guess maybe if we did do a 2-year term, maybe there's an option for.
He's asking for an option for a 5-year, option for 5 year after the 2 year.
So I wonder if there's
if there's a way to recover some of that. Well, if there's a way for increased rent during that 2-year period and then a decreased rent during the 5-year period. In other words,
That is something we could discuss or negotiate with him, to see what those first 2 years bring, or we could work through some of those details. Obviously, he's not here, so I can't speak for him.
yeah.
That included utilities, right?
He would be responsible for utilities.
Oh, he would be, okay,
Yes,
got you.
yes,
So it'd be
correct.
plus utility, okay.
Yeah.
Cost to the town on his proposal. He's responsible for the upfit, he's responsible for, we don't really,
That is correct. We've already, staff agreed, we've done some work to that building, as you know,
Yeah.
recently, and we took that cost on because it was something we felt like had to be done for us to be able to rent that building and meet some of the other code requirements we were faced with on a regular basis. So we've spent a fair amount of funds to get the building where it's at now. But we have not agreed to do anything else. And Mr. Drum, he knows that. He knew that anything that went further was his responsibility.
the day that y'all had the walkthrough, jokingly said it'd be cool to have the Preservation Hall Jazz Band comment. You remember when I said that?
Well, I
And this
remember
is
very well.
doggone
It's been repeated. And
pretty close
I'll leave that
to-
out of the meeting, but anyway.
pretty close to
Yeah,
that in
pretty
New
close.
Orleans. So, I mean, I don't dislike it. I got to get more comfortable with some of the terms. That's about it.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Mac, did you have something you wanted to add?
If you're interested in doing this with a January 1 start date, it would be useful if we could bring you a resolution on November 6th. We can't lease the property for a term of less than 10 years except upon 30 days published notice. So if we get a resolution in front of you on November 6th, you could take action at your only December meeting on the 9th.
And that's, so Drum and Quill, Kevin is asking for, Seaboard Speakeasy is asking for June 1st.
Correct.
So we wouldn't have to take action until.
You're fine.
Okay, but then if we wanted to rent it out on a nightly or weekend basis,
Rent it out.
yeah, then does that also need to be,
No,
okay.
that's fine.
Yeah, I think you've got some questions to take back to Kevin. Do you all have additional questions you want him to bring up?
I like both, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead,
I
Bill.
would say just continue to explore that. And sadly, there wasn't another proposal. So let's make this one that we have work. I did have, it's more like nonprofits ask me about it when y'all, because y'all did a great job. I know people saw it because I got asked about it. And I was like, you see the details, reach out. And so you said you had reach outs. Did you have any from nonprofit types?
I had,
that,
we
were
had,
prob-
I personally had one from a nonprofit, and we discussed it. And their first question, I don't know what they were going to use it for, but they were interested. And their question was, are we solid on the amount of the lease?
Yeah.
Because you remember, we tried to explain that away in the newspaper article. Originally, it started at a $500 lease, and the reason it was at $500 is because there was a lot of work and repair work to be done. But that agreement it went from 5,000 to
500.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I just also got a text that this gentleman is on Midland Road, so sorry. I don't know if that means that he's coming or that he's so sorry that he's not coming, but just to convey, if we wanted to hear from him
Kevin?
after this next item, we can circle back.
Okay, so unless there's specific other questions, then let's move on. Do you all have anything else you want to add? You guys did a great job hosting the open house. That was a lovely event, and glad that I made it over.
thank you.
Thank you, guys. Okay, Director Grieve, our Planning Department update.
Good evening, members of council. BJ Grieve with Town of Southern Pines Planning Department. I just wanted to give you a couple quick updates on goings-on in our world. We are fully staffed. We had a new planner start 2 weeks ago. His name is Keenan Dale. He is picking up information fast and furious. We appreciate his presence a great deal. I wanted to then go into a quick update on the comprehensive plan and phase 2 of comprehensive plan implementation. You may recall that this phase 2 list of to-do list was approved by council in December of 2024. We've been plugging away at it. We'll start at the bottom just because we're almost fully done on this one. The only one on here that we haven't done is gone in and removed some of the vestiges in the UDO, the MRO in Chapter 6. It's because we had some ideas about possibly using that space for some other stuff. But the sign code has been updated. You may recall that I thought that our sign code update was going to be one of our most controversial projects, and it turned out not to be, which I'm thrilled about. I credit a lot of that to outreach by entities within the community and a lot of great work on that, so we appreciate that. The project of expanding local business opportunities by doing accessory commercial units, this is kind of stalled out. This project had been assigned to Elena Millette. When she left, this one there were some other priorities we were working on up here. So this one, we've done some work, we've done some initial outreach, but we've had a hard time getting a hold of folks to continue working on that one. Improving transportation options, this was 50% because we did apply for the NCDOT multimodal planning grant in March of 2025. The word on that grant when we submitted the application was supposed to come out in June or July of 2025, and we have not heard anything, and we've attempted to follow up with them. So they just haven't made decisions on that round of funding. And then the Complete Streets audit was obviously going to be done with that grant, so that's why our part of it in terms of submitting the grant is done. Expanding housing options, this one is well underway. In fact, it's been the primary focus of it because the one project that we felt was the biggest priority in the comp plan, when Elena left, the remaining staff picked up that and ran with it. And of course, James Broadwell is really working very hard on that. I did want to give you some numbers that since 2023, December 2023, when the comp plan was adopted, we have conducted reviews of and put before you 0 multifamily units. 0 projects, 0 units, and we have brought before you 7 projects that total 89 units of townhome development, so ownership options. And so that is what the comp plan calls for in terms of housing, is to not see so many apartments, but to see more opportunities for ownership at a price point that is less than a $750,000 detached single-family residential home on a third of an acre. So we feel we've had some success with that. And then, of course, the other part of that is that there's a major text amendment that's been underway for quite a while with the Housing Focus Group and a variety of folks. And this Thursday night at 5:30, there will be a town talk, October 30th, for my colleague James Broadwell to preview, before it goes to planning board, the minor 2 and minor 3 scenario for housing. That project, it comes from the work of the focus group. It's been reviewed by all kinds of entities, including members of the planning board, and we've had great luck with working on it, but it's also, it's a big thing. So we wanted to make sure we got some feedback from the planning board to get it out to the public before it gets to planning board and have even more opportunity for people to see it. So we're advertising far and wide as much as we can this Town Talk event. The previous 2 Town Talk events we had no participation, nobody showed up, but it's okay. We're hopeful that with outreach on this and the subject and you remember the CAC when the comp plan was underway, the Community Advisory Committee, that group has been invited, planning board's been invited, and so we know we're gonna get some participation there. So we're really excited about that.
What time is that and where is it?
That is at 5:30. Yep.
Sure.
October 30th, 5:30 at the Douglas Center.
Are we invited?
You know what? Absolutely.
All right, thanks.
And so we're really, James is really very into his presentation. He's very excited about the minor 2 and minor 3 work. It is delightfully complex because there were so many things that was like, hey, let's do incentives. Let's not do, let's not force things to happen, but let's provide incentives for if they do happen. Let's make sure we keep Southern Pinesy by having protection of character baked into this, but let's make sure to also try to keep it so that if somebody brings in the type of project we want to see, we create a path of lesser resistance, if that makes sense. So we're really excited about it. And then we have not worked on parking code revisions. We've studied the issue. We've had many talks about it. We know we have some ideas, but we haven't started working on that one yet, so that might be something for phase 3. Let's see, after that, I wanted to give a quick update on phase 1. You'll remember the work we did last calendar year. By the end of last calendar year, we had put forth to you a package of amendments to our landscaping code to focus more on quality and less on quantity. We also put before you a tree preservation ordinance that had been well vetted to kind of check all the boxes and hit all the high notes of tree preservation. We also put before you character districts, the first 2 character districts. Of course, we opened our public hearing in November 2024. In December of 2024, Senate Bill 382 was passed, and we've been on hold ever since then. Those amendments are going to come back to you at the November 6th meeting because they were continued for 2 months at the September meeting. And so, unfortunately, Senate Bill 587, which is you might say it's the front runner to fix the challenges put out there for local governments by Senate Bill 382. No action has been taken, but the legislature is still in session. And so we're hopeful, and we're going to recommend that we continue that to February, because that way, if the session closes, we will know at that point if the session adjourns and nothing has been done, so be it. If something has been done, it might happen between now and the end of the session, so we'll keep our fingers crossed. That's going to be our recommendation coming up in November. I had a meeting with representatives from Carthage, Whispering Pines, Cameron, Vass, where we all talked about the annexation agreements. Vass is getting a lot of inquiries about annexations, and you'll notice from this map that this is Vass municipal limits. This is the vast ETJ, and this is also vast municipal limits out here. And so these annexations have created a pattern whereby a lot of folks are contacting Vass about annexing into Vass in areas out here that are actually between.
For context, that bottom blue one's that new gas station that just opened not
Yes.
long ago. Okay.
Yep. These annexations include Tractor Supply, Dollar General, and those all went into Vass jurisdiction. Annexation agreements, one of the primary benefits of an annexation agreement is to prevent developers from going to one jurisdiction and saying, what can you give us if we annex into your jurisdiction? And then going to another jurisdiction and saying, what can we get if we annex into your jurisdiction? And with this many jurisdictions nearby, possibly going to a third or a fourth jurisdiction and saying, what can we get if we annex into your jurisdiction? Here's what we can give you for tax base. And then they look for the jurisdiction that will require the least of them, usually, especially for commercial development. So these entities got together because with the number of inquiries going to all 5 entities for this area, it was discussed of doing a 5-way annexation agreement to draw a line so that simply developers are told, you go to Southern Pines, you go to Vass, you go to Whispering Pines, et cetera. And just keeps it, so therefore it prevents the playing against each other of all the municipalities. We had the initial conversation. Everyone in the room agreed that we were receptive to the dialogue because such a thing could be really beneficial. Like I said, I think I mentioned this, but we presently have annexation agreements only with Whispering Pines and Pinehurst. So this would be a great opportunity. And I just kind of want to put it on the town council's radar that we'll continue to talk with those entities. And I know that Vass has agreed to take a leadership role through the Central Pines Council of Governments. Their planner is employed by Central Pines, Chris Lawson, and he was willing to take the lead on this. And we could just basically have meetings and participate in setting those lines. It shouldn't be abundantly complicated, but like with any annexation agreement, it can get a little touchy, but we'll just keep an eye on it.
If it's too big of a question, say we'll do it next time. What enables like Vass to spot those little things all well away from their central and ETJ section?
Yeah, so I had an opportunity to recently reread the statutes about satellite annexations. It is possible to annex down the road. There's some slightly different requirements for annexing, far away from and not adjacent to your own municipality. There are some rules in those satellite annexation agreements that I looked carefully here to see when these were done. And, I certainly had some observations and we talked about that. But to answer your question, there is a section of statute that allows for you to annex out of satellite annexations. Yeah.
BJ, can I ask you a question more on the comp plan? On phase 1, assuming the things that you've completed that are held up because of actions, the General Assembly level, what percentage complete would you say that you are, or that we are, with phase 1 tasks? Like just anecdotally.
Assuming those are Done or
Assuming those are-
not done?
They're done, assuming they're done. We're
Oh,
waiting.
yeah, we're at about, for phase one, we're probably at about 85% because actually in phase two, the accessory commercial units,
Yeah,
that was actually a rollover from phase one.
Okay.
We still haven't made any progress on it. And there's a number of reasons for it, but we could look at it for phase three, quite frankly.
I know we have more character districts to go
Yeah.
in as a part of phase one, but the other things in my mind are completed, waiting on action in Raleigh, so.
Yeah, and
85%.
I'll come back around to a discussion that was had was that going into phase two, we didn't know how long this was going to take, with whether 382, actually, when we were introducing phase one, we didn't know 382 was going to happen. But when we were discussing it, we actually thought, let's adopt the first two character districts, see how they do. Let them breathe for a year or two, and then come back and maybe do third, fourth, fifth character district. Because we really wanted to see, they're pretty ambitious. They do have a lot of, like I said, you'll recall, they pull out the primary character features and then apply them for new development. Very exciting. We had a lot of enthusiasm about them. But yeah, they probably do warrant a little room to breathe. So even if something happens and we're able to adopt them, I think that's still probably a good policy to kind of let them breathe and see what happens for a year or two. So. But yeah, phase one went well, phase two went well. We get into phase three, and then I might as well mention it now, is that once we get into phase three, we also want to be thinking within about 18 months of a 5-year comp plan update, because that'll be coming up. And actually, enough things have changed just in the first 3 years that it's going to be a good opportunity to look at a comp plan update about 2.5 years from now. And we start that process in about 1.5 years. So.
How do you anticipate that process taking place? Do you think there'd be another committee appointed? Would there be a contract person? Would Matt be called back into the game?
I think that would be for an update rather than a whole new
Right,
plan. I
right.
think that would probably be, you could, if you wanted to, you could get the old band back together, the old CAC, and see where people are at. You could create a new advisory committee, but I could definitely see talking to the consultant that created the plan, because Matt would indeed have a lot of knowledge of the plan and everything that was in it. It would be a logical update project for him. And I've never heard anything bad from folks about Matt's work on that plan.
All right. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Okay, coming for November Town Council, I just have 2 items left. November Town Council is going to be, again, those aforementioned continuances. We will have another dedication for another petition for dedication of Carlisle between Brucewood and Tanglewood. That section of road has been completed. We will also have a new conceptual development plan, CDP, for Penick. You may remember that came to you, but then it was withdrawn because they needed to do some work on it. So they've come back with quite a few changes to work with the neighborhood. So those are the items that are going to be on the November Town Council agenda. And finally, I wanted to see if anyone had any feedback on the slightly new formatting for the staff reports. Basically the executive summary, and after that, if there was any feedback on that.
I think it's great.
Wonderful.
Definitely.
Great. Really happy to hear that.
As I told you initially, just so long as you're not spending an unnecessarily amount of time to put it together. If it's okay-ish, time-wise, I like it.
Yeah, AI writes them all anyways. Perfect. Just kidding. It was a joke. It was a joke. We're working really hard on those. Yeah, no, it's not that big a deal. Thank you. We write a summary at the beginning anyway, so it's. Thank you.
Director, I had one question. So you had said when we started implementing the new comp plan, was it the end of 2023? Is that right?
We adopted the comprehensive plan December of 2023.
Okay. I just want to say thank you and congratulations for the work. I think that what I have heard from the public is to slow down, that we don't want more apartments. And my response has been, we slowed down 1.5 years ago. So you're welcome that we already did it before you mentioned it. But I think it was your all's process in implementing this comp plan that has gotten us into those smaller projects and fewer of the apartments. So I appreciate your work on it. And your
Yeah,
whole
it is.
teams.
It is hard to see some of the social media comments because the apartments that are currently under construction, many of them were entitled 3 or 4 years ago. And after that, a comp plan was written in reaction to that. But now things just kind of, that's how this process works. It's like economic things. They take a while to see the results. But thank you, and I'm going to pass that along to a lot of people who've worked really hard, and I'll pass that along to an entire team's worth of folks. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Conceptually, while you're on it, that's the 2040 plan. And so we passed it 23, and it doesn't say do everything in this plan in 2 years.
Oh,
It's
no.
like a
Yeah, no.
20-year, 15-year project. So having to do an update in 5 years, is that normal? Just because, talked about like people were like, slow down. There's a lot of good things in here, but we don't have to smash them all in the first 5 years of and then do nothing for 10 years till 2040. So what's the update? Is that normal that we do an update? And then how do you gauge, okay, it's 2040 plan, which is a 15-year window. How fast do you progress with trying to accomplish what you're trying to do?
That's such a great question. I appreciate you asking that, Councilman Pate. First of all, some of the circumstances that can change is, remember, we have, for example, a whole bunch of zoning out there that allows certain development by right, certain things that are administratively approved. And every year that goes by, development occurs in those areas that wasn't there when development was studied, when land use patterns were studied. More commercial comes online that serves, basically you might say a per capita square foot of square footage of commercial retail land uses, things like that. And what happens is, when you take a snapshot, remember the plan that was adopted in 2023, the data upon which that plan is written are really 2021. And if you're at the beginning of 2023 and you're writing a plan, if you've got 2020, 2021 data, that's good data. That's the part that, it's always there's a lag. So you're really studying conditions that were, entry into COVID, maybe even pre-COVID conditions. So a lot of things change and you want to make sure to go back. Other things can pop up. I'll give you just an example. Yes, we still have an ETJ, but let's say, for example, in a legislative session over the next couple of years, the ETJ factor comes up. You need to take a look at your plan for how you have all kinds of activity areas, some of which have activated, some of which have not. Some were planned for something and then that project fell through. Economic conditions have cycles. So a really important point about that I want to mention here while I have this opportunity is, correct. You don't have a 5-year plan. You say, we need to cram all this development into 5 years. No, not at all. What you're saying is, here's how, you look to the past and you say, here's the data points of things we like and don't like. Here's where we're at now and here's where we want to be on the future, so that you can't really create much of a line with 1 point, but if you get those 3 points on there, you can draw a line. Now the analysis is, you still have this point and this point, but maybe things aren't going the way you want it, or things are working really well, and you want to adjust out here and change that line. And that's why you take a new look at it every 5 years. Does that answer your question? Yeah, thank you very much.
And updates are statutorily required for our town how often?
To the best of my recollection right now, I don't think they're
Loose language.
statutorily required, actually.
Oh, they're not?
No, I think having a plan in the state of North Carolina is now a requirement to have zoning, whereas it didn't used to be.
Okay.
And a plan should be current. It should be, you shouldn't have a 32-year-old plan upon which your zoning is based. But for a plan that is as good as ours, that covers as many topics as ours does, with as much data in it and has as much public input, 5 years is a commonly accepted update cycle in the planning profession. You'd look at, after 10 years, you'd want to look at whether or not it's appropriate to redo it, refresh the whole thing. But 5 years is definitely an appropriate time to update. Just make sure your data are still trending based on what has happened.
Thanks, PJ.
Yeah, no, thank you. Great questions. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? No. All right. Thank you. Since we had Kevin Drum arrive, are you all okay if we at least give him an opportunity to speak?
Absolutely.
First of all, I want to apologize for being late. I wrote it down wrong on my calendar. I really appreciate the opportunity. You could easily have not let me speak, so I appreciate it. I think for the sake of the audience, with a short rundown, we're talking about the freight building.
Is there any chance, you would have a seat?
You'll
so
sit
we
down
can
and-
have you on the mic so that people who are watching online can
Sure.
hear you. Thank you. For the sake of the
You
audience.
have seen, the document, the RFP I wrote. I did make some changes, and I'll tell you why. But the proposal outlines my intent to lease and not technically restore the historic Seaboard Railroad Freight Building, but to add a bar to it, a high-quality bar that looks like it's been there for 100 years. The concept would be called the Seaboard Speakeasy, taking a cue from the Seaboard Railroad and Seaboard Airlines. And it's a refined one-room cocktail lounge evoking the spirit of the 20s, unlike any existing business. A lot of people, I have a home in Wilmington, I have a property in Blowing Rock, and both those communities want to drum and quill, and I I tell them, why do you want a drum and quill? A drum and quill already exists in Pinehurst. I would build something special for Wilmington, and I would build something special for Blowing Rock. And so, it's been real easy to come in here and do a drum and quill concept. Well, the building talked to me a little bit, and everybody that owns businesses here are friends of mine, and it was important for me to come up with something unique and more of a passion project. So the small atmospheric space celebrating the town's railroads, heritage, horticulture, and jazz age energy seemed like what the building needed. I'm trying to capture the romance of the rails and spirit of the historic building. The jazz era is when the railroad was at its peak. Community fit, no other establishment in Southern Pines offers a true speakeasy or a prohibition-style venue. We're talking about a secret code on the door. That concept is kind of one hand in hand with a speakeasy. It's not about generating traffic. It's more about generating an experience. It's a very unusual concept because you're going to have to find it. And that's part of the game of speakeasies. And it's not going to be like heavily advertised of social media. And I really feel like the space dedicates itself to this. And but it doesn't compete with any existing business. And as I said, everybody that has an existing business is a friend of mine. And I said, how can I do something that doesn't compete with an existing business while preserve the past? Operating hours of the speakeasy would be Thursday through Sunday. It would still be in an event venue. From the scale of the project is probably at a smaller scale than the major events that you used to have there. But I'm not saying that events could end up using, the whole outdoor space. I intend to use the indoor space and to be an indoor. I don't see any problem with the noise code because I'm talking about a piano. I'm not talking about live rock and roll bands or anything like that. But what happened between the time I submitted my proposal is I did a 3D imagery, thanks to Mike letting me in there, and I sent it to my designer. I had to deal with health code issues and what I had to do a health code compliant bar. The health department wasn't in the past involved with bars, but they are now. And then my designer reminded me that I'm redoing the carriage house in Wilmington and redoing a house in Georgetown, South Carolina, and that my timeline was impossible. And so I was excited that I was still allowed to speak today because I'm not sure that I could accomplish what I want to accomplish till June 1st. That's negotiable, I put in there, change it to a 2-year lease proof of concept with a 5-year extension, and I think this is a concept. This is usually it takes 3 years for something to work, but I think in this day and age, things move a little quicker. So, I could do 3 years as well. But, it's really going to be a dark space. I'll be closing I think I think there's been some noise complaints. I'll be closing those freight doors. I've already talked a little bit about, I have to work with the Historic Commission. I'll be trying to cover the existing doors with freight-like doors. It's going to look like a freight building. Well, it's not going to look like a bar. And you're going to have to know how to get in to get in. It's going to be a secret bar, and it's going to be mellow. It's going to be a place where you could have privacy and talk to people. And it's a really simple concept. It might be so simple that people might have a lot of questions though, because it's just really, basics. Try to make it so the building's the star, is what I decided, what I could accomplish. I underestimated how much work it would take to get the design element in, and then and I have my designer that I use has some things it will take her till January probably to finish up, and probably couldn't even start on the design until I want until February. But I mean, all that's negotiable, but I just couldn't hit the timeline. I wanted initially to start January 1st and try to get it open by February. And I just think it's an impossible timeline. And I'm very fortunate that I have a designer that knocks some sense into me. I don't think I want to open something with a temporary setup. I think it either has to be right or not open it. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm willing to try to advance the schedule, but I'm not willing to sit here and tell you something that I can't accomplish. That's the part I'm willing to walk away. You know, if you can't accept that what I want to do is going to take some time. It's the compliance part that I guess I underestimated. You know, I don't think a lot of event venues have to meet health code compliance. So I'm really concerned about that. Maybe I'm overly concerned, but I am concerned. The other thing I will add is, you know, the previous tenants added to the building. They did some quality things. You guys did some great things. You know, I would be adding a bar that would be stationary and would stay with the building. And I think that would work with any, you know, hopefully I'm there forever, but it would be an additional asset for you, for anybody that rented that space. But that's the only thing I want to add. That's how perfect that building is. That building feels like everything I wanted. I mean, everything that building exudes is exactly what anybody would want if they started from scratch. So you really don't have to do much with that building. And but the bar is the most intense thing, and having to be health code compliant. And that completes my presentation, except I wanted to show you the sign that inspired it. And 75 years is copyright law. It will just say, "Speak easy." Nobody's going to know that's a bar unless they're looking for it. I mean, you know, it's really going to be a secret bar. And copyright laws, except in some circumstances, last 75 years. This is beyond the 75-year copyright. Let's hope the Seaboard sees it as a compliment. I believe they will, and that's it. Questions?
Well, I was going to say, I think, so it sounds like the council is amenable to your plan. I mean, I think it fits what we were looking for. We had some questions that we gave to staff and had kind of directed Chief Cameron to work with you on cementing sort of the plan on when does the upfit start, when are you opening, some details on the lease. And I think that's probably stuff that you all can work on like outside the meeting. But if council does have specific questions that they'd like for you to address, I'll let them
That's
ask
what
them.
added to the timeline. I do need historic approval on some things, and I need your approval on everything I do. So that's gonna,
If there is anything being permanently built inside that building, I hope it would come back to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I think the biggest thing we talked about, and when Mr. Drummond and I met, was the bar. Obviously, there's going to be furniture and that kind of stuff. There's some challenges with the doors that we've discussed, but we think we can work through some of that. So obviously, and as you already know, anything on the exterior of the building, Historic District Commissioner has some say-so in.
Okay. Yeah, if you'll have questions for Mr. Drummond while he's here.
The only question I had, and this is a result of what came up a while ago, are you going to take the entire inside? Or was there, I thought I heard something about splitting it.
Just the way that building actually has three portions. He's renting or leasing the portion that.
The whole back?
That whole back.
Okay.
CSX will not be relinquishing their area. They still have an office and a storage area that they will continue to use. Yes, sir.
I thought you were talking about dividing the back. So you got the whole back.
No,
Okay.
it's going to be the whole back. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I know that the dates are still a little bit fluid, but when you say the revised numbers that you sent to Chief Cameron was June 1st, is that open date or is that upfit date?
I'd like it to be the open date. And,
Okay.
And you know, that's an assumption that I don't know what type of cost, I have to sign a lease and put a deposit. I think it's I think we're in negotiation. Like I say, I'm very happy that I'm allowed in the room with changing the date to June 1st, because I thought that would disqualify me. So I'm just very grateful I'm here.
Sounds like you would start before June 1st as far as your.
I'd like to. I'd like to.
I also like the fact that you're amenable to maybe a longer term for the first,
Yeah,
the first go round versus 2 years.
I want a
maybe
proof
3.
of concept. I don't need it because I feel pretty, maybe a little too confident, but proof of concept was 2 years, but I'd like the opportunity to sign a 5-year lease after the 2 years and like a continuous rolling 5-year lease.
But you mentioned possibly the flexibility of doing that first one at 3 years and then 5 years.
I'd be open to that.
Okay.
I did when I talked to them, I said 2 or 3 years. So I just need proof of concept. I think in the past, I'm a consultant. A lot of people don't know me as a consultant, but they know me as Drone Quill. But and I've served on the council and the historic commission. I appreciate. And a lot of people don't know I'm working on a 100-year-old Sears house on 275 North Ash. Redoing that from scratch. So I'm a block away from this building.
I like your idea and your concept, and I'll be a patron.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, it took a while for that building to talk to me, but as I said, this is the only thing I know that would be non-competitive and would add to the community. And couldn't think of another. You have everything here. It's such a cool place. Maybe a couple more hotel rooms, but.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for your proposal.
Well, I want to thank you guys. I was late, and I'm never late for anything, so I apologize. I promise you the check will be drawn from my account. You won't be mailing it to you, so that won't be late. And I want you to know Southern Pines Finest was out there slowing me down on Midland Road to get here. But
All right, well, thank you for coming. It's all right that you were late. I appreciate that we had a chance to speak with you.
well, thank you for your time, and thanks for letting me speak. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So Chief Cameron, you'll follow up with him
Yep.
on details, okay?
Yep, we'll follow up. Thank you.
Okay, I think Chief Polidori, I think it's you now. Golf cart travel on public streets. This is something that one of our citizens had asked me, and I asked Reagan, who then forwarded it to you, and I think we're kind of coming full circle on what our rules are. And I guess you're going to provide some more information on that.
Sure. We don't have an ordinance currently that would allow golf carts on town roads. There's a general statute that was passed not long ago that allows the municipality to pass a local ordinance for that to happen. But we currently do not have that in place. So that would be up to the council to examine that. What's the desire, I would say, to start there and tailor an ordinance that fits our community and our roads and not just a blanket drop golf carts on the street.
What's the requested ask? I mean, is it like people within neighborhoods or somebody wants to go down Midland Road? I mean, what is the ask for why we need to address it at this point?
I think there was an interest in having golf carts in the historic area up in Weymouth Heights area, like the neighborhood adjacent to downtown. So it's, as Chief Polidori said, it's really up to us on where it's allowed. So the general statute does not automatically allow golf carts on roads. It allows us to create
Create a local ordinance.
Okay.
Yes. Mhm.
I'm sure this goes without repeating, but with limitations on where you want golf carts to travel.
Yes.
I say that from the fire and police side, obviously.
We took some time, myself and Deputy Chief Eaton and Captain Marsh, and I looked at Pinehurst and Whispering Pines as an ordinance. I believe I sent those out, and they're pretty good. Pinehurst is actually really good, and we could use that as a model. They only have a few roads listed. I'll call it do not ride road, where you cannot be on them. Our list is quite extensive and probably should grow. And if you read their ordinance, it starts with not being able to operate a golf cart on a road with a speed limit greater than 35 miles per hour. So that automatically takes out US 1 15501, but it leaves in large portions of Central Drive, which is Highway 22, and Midland Road. There's just a lot of problems with that. So you can add in where else you cannot ride on or alongside of. And just an example of some of the roads, and I'd be happy to email just this rough draft out to council if you'd like. Midland Road, Central Drive, Morganton, PD Road, West Pennsylvania Avenue, west of Bennett Street intersection, East Connecticut Avenue, east of North Ridge, East Indiana Avenue, east of South May, Pinehurst Avenue, Murray Hill, North and South May Street, Brucewood. The list can kind of go on and on. Carolina Green Parkway. It's really where we have vehicles traveling at least 35 miles per hour, but they're more congested highways with little shoulder space, right? And the way the ordinances are written is the golf cart can't ride on shoulders. It has to be on the roadway. So there's just so many things to consider if we go down this path that I think we can't just overnight say, hey, we're going to have a golf course ordinance.
To date, it's probably happening. I don't know. I can't tell you where it is, but have y'all gotten calls where like, hey, there's a golf cart right
I
down the
see
road?
them on my street, and then I have to go track down somebody I would call neighbor and say, hey, I understand you probably think you're in Whispering Pines, but you're not.
Statement. I see them on my street.
Yeah, so people are already doing it. The problem is some people you see actually have what at one point I saw looked like a 12-year-old driving the golf cart.
Yeah.
So, if we're going to allow, we really need to tailor our ordinance correctly.
If we do the ordinance, is that what entails? Because I know in Pinehurst, I see these carts and they're licensed. They have safety features. They're different than just like a normal golf cart.
So that would be more of a side-by-side.
Is it where's the chicken or the egg? Does the ordinance make you react and get licensed and registered?
No,
or is it the
you
other
don't
way?
have to. So if we want to enact an ordinance for golf carts to be used on town roads, our ordinance would simply state, you have to register it with the town. The town will, whatever fee we charge, you'll put a sticker on the front or front and back, or we choose. What's the frequency we want to renew registration, or are we required to show proof of insurance on it as part of the registration? And as long as it's a golf cart passed under this ordinance, then it would simply especially to be able to be driven after dark, it should have headlights and taillights on it so people can see it, and mirrors, at least one mirror on it. Yeah.
I think mirror's smart.
A horn would be nice, but not all golf carts come with them, right? Some people get the golf carts refurbished from a golf course, right? And they probably don't have some of these features on them. So
To your question, the golf carts that are allowed on Pinehurst are typical golf carts. They're not electric vehicles, but you have to have headlight, horn,
right,
up one mirror, but you don't have to have a turn signal.
yeah, we have near 2 pages of notes to consider as if the desire is to move forward with an ordinance.
So, would be the idea to take this, if we set them forward as a baby step, or look at the entire town?
I think we would have to draw a map. So we would,
Like we'd focus
today,
on,
if a majority of council thinks it's a good idea, we would probably instruct the police department and planning board to work on a map of really what logically makes sense
Yeah.
and bring that back to us.
okay.
Does that sound appropriate?
If that's what you want, we can do that.
What would you
Certainly.
like from us?
I think you're going to get a lot of pushback very quickly of why isn't my section of town included, and this one is.
If people want their section of town included, that we ought to consider it. I mean, I think that's appropriate, yeah.
The problem will be in some of these other sections is getting, like, in a gated community, you can ride your golf cart down the road, right?
As long as it's not a public road. If it's a private road, yes, this doesn't impact it.
Getting from Midland Road to downtown is probably not realistic, but getting from West Southern Pines to downtown is.
I feel like Pennsylvania, besides people coming off
Pennsylvania.
US 1, which I feel like is
No,
potentially
just-
dangerous, but I think it might, if West Southern Pines is included down Pennsylvania, maybe it ties West Southern Pines into Southern Pines more. I mean,
Well, and gets to
I'd be
the
interested
shopping,
in-
if you
yeah.
cross
I'd be interested
perpendicular to Morganton Road at a stoplight
Yeah.
versus,
in what residents think and what they want.
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good.
Also, Chief Polidori has a pretty good idea just from his list there, him and his staff. if we at least initially take that list and go to GIS and build you a map, and then that gives you a visual to work off of with their deeper thought into that to come back and say, we don't think these areas will work, and we give you a little bit of something to work off of. Not a final document, but just a working document that you can see. Would that be acceptable?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chief Polidor? So-
For clarity, so folks ride their golf carts just as recreational. It's not like people don't have cars. You have cars, but you just want to ride your golf cart and put Johnny next to you and
Or in some cases in the driver's seat.
helpless.
No, but I think it eases up some of the stress on parking. I mean, I've seen Pinehurst seems to, a lot of people take their golf carts downtown.
Yep. I've had that discussion with Chief Webb, and it's hit or miss, right? Golf carts will take up vehicular parking, which then forces people to park further out, and vice versa.
Well, but if they're not in a golf cart, what are they in?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we're
Car.
parking, exactly.
The car would take up the same parking spot.
Right.
I don't know how that's an issue. It's a smaller car.
Versus they have golf cart parking
Oh, yeah.
that's empty,
I mean, honestly, I
and then they
wouldn't.
park in and a golf cart can park in a car parking place, but a car can't park in a golf cart parking
Yeah,
place.
I would say don't change the parking unless we get to that point where
No.
it's getting
But
used. Yeah.
that was just one of the things as we went through a long list of, hey, what do we think the council wants? What does the community want? What's the anticipated problems with it?
Yeah.
And parking came up.
Yeah.
They've probably seen, I don't know I don't know the answer to this question, but I feel like in Pinehurst, they probably haven't seen people get hurt, a lot of accidents as a result of golf carts. But I will say this, having driven a golf cart in Pinehurst, you will by nature roll through a stop sign because it's just all open and you feel like you can see every way. So that would be one of my concerns as far as like being a little more careless when you drive on a golf cart versus a car. But I don't know that the data in Pinehurst supports that there's been increased accidents as a result of them, but I don't know. You may, yeah.
I do want to see the map because we're not the same as Pinehurst. They don't have near the commercial districts that we do and the high street traffic. So we'll see. Because then maybe in my head, I'm thinking, oh, some connectivity. But then if you show me, well, you'd have to use this road to connect this neighborhood to here, and we don't want the carts on it, it may help see
Yeah,
kind of the bigger
I agree.
picture of if it makes sense or not.
There may be roads that you may be able to drive the golf cart on either side of the road, but you can't cross that street.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things that's why I think the
Right.
map helps you
Or vice versa, is you can't drive on it, but you can
cross.
you can cross over 15, right? Or you can
Yeah.
cross over Central Drive, stuff like that.
So I think that probably helps you with your decision making.
Your list that I got most of it down, but it was Central Midland Road, these are no's. Central Midland Road, Connecticut, Indiana, Morganton, West Pennsylvania, East Connecticut Avenue, Carolina Green Parkway. What did I miss?
I think
Those were
didn't-
crossover.
Yeah,
Can't
like, I didn't
ride
write
on
any
the
of those
crossover.
down because I was hoping you were going to bring us that list next time you have time to put
But those are also
time into it.
places where it seems like it would be dangerous to have golf carts. Do you disagree with that?
Yeah, that's a given.
I think that's what I believe when you said like Indiana, that's the only one I focused on was Indiana and May that would be the boundary. Is that
Correct. So what we suggested was if you're on East Indiana Avenue, basically from Broad Street into May Street and can't cross over May Street.
Right.
Right, because much more traffic on the other side
Right.
going out of town on Indiana Avenue, right? So it would be very piecemealed in places on where you'd be able to take them.
But there would probably be one crossover on May somewhere. Maybe.
Basically every other road, yeah. So you could be on New York Avenue, cross over
Right.
May, and
Gotcha.
go,
Yeah.
continue east, the east side of town.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, I think if you start putting together a list or maps of where it might make sense, then we'll hear from the community more on if they want it and where they would like have access.
Is your map going to be where it would make sense or where it would not make sense or all of the above?
I think we could work with GIS and color code it.
If we could have a list of where you think it's a traffic hazard, that would be really helpful, I think. Thank you.
For ease on my eyes, I feel like it would just be a map where you think it's a good idea. Well,
let me take that back. I'm not saying that you think it's a good idea. Where you think it, where you think it's possibly more feasible than not, rather than cluttered. That's for me, but.
So 2 maps.
I think we can provide one map that will give you the,
I think so too.
the one picture. I feel we're pretty comfortable with that.
Okay.
If we get into this, if we get into the details
And we need to
and we
see more
find that
last
we
one.
can't, we will provide you with what we think you want to see. And then obviously if we
Right.
don't have that, we'll
Okay.
go back to the drawing
Thank
board.
you.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you all have any other questions while he's still here?
Well, he's got, who's doing it?
I assume, Chief Cameron, are you doing that? The East Vermont concerns?
Absolutely.
I'd be glad to field questions about it.
I think, I was going to ask if Chief Baldor would stay for that. Obviously, you know that we've had some concerns for a citizen about East Vermont. There's been several pretty positive email exchanges that I have been involved with some of those emails, back and forth on both sides, good conversation between the town and the resident. I guess it was week before last at this point, I was not involved in this meeting, but we did have some staff meet with the resident, which I think is, when he was here, maybe not. But there was a lot of discussion about limiting traffic or changing speeds on East Vermont. So, Chief Polidori, I know you and some of your staff was at that. Is that something you want?
Captain Marsh attended that meeting.
Yeah.
You have some notes from that?
Comments? You have a memo from the manager on that? He gave you 3 options, I believe, on things that we could or choose to do if we chose to. The police department did some collected some data in that area, which was pretty, in my opinion, fairly meaningful data on what the problem may be or may not be, and depending on who you talk to.
And maybe I just can't read I'm not good at reading the all traffic solutions data, but
Put
it
your
seems
mic on, Brandon. Mic on.
to.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I'm not really good at reading the all traffic solutions data, but it seems to me like most people are compliant.
Compliant?
Compliant.
Yes, the 85th percentile speeds are low.
Below speed limit.
Yes.
85th percentile is 10 miles. Isn't it 35? So 8 miles below speed limit.
Are you on the sheet here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me
So-
look at
so
that.
it's
So yeah,
26
the 85th percentile speed is 26.75 miles per hour, and that was one of the studies.
Yeah.
And it's a 35 mile per hour road.
Right.
Like every road in town, there's going to be an outlier. Occasionally a vehicle or a motorcycle, something will speed on it. But in general, the 85th percentile. Speed looks good. I know Captain Marsh put that sign back out again a couple weeks ago in a different placement, and it's out there again right now, getting the opposite traffic.
Okay.
So, but again, just talking to him earlier today, or this afternoon, there's not much change in the data. So the speed, I don't believe speed based off the data is the problem on the road. I think it's, and just reading the notes from the meeting, I think a lot of it is traffic congestion on East Vermont Avenue, that 1 and 200 block.
Yeah.
And then the concern was brought about trucks traveling on the road, and vehicles suggested maybe only take a left turn on the May Street, or not take a left turn, I believe, just take a right turn. So the manager had some suggestions in here, and we kind of supported those as well as a wholesale, just change the speed limit on that road. I don't believe that's warranted. And you could see the notes from the manager on that as well. He did note that if a golf cart ordinance was to pass, that would probably be a good time to, that whole block of roads right there, lowering that speed limit as well from basically Ash Street and Broad Street to May. Four-way stop signs were brought up. And again, I don't believe the data supports, and again, like noted in his comments there, that that's probably not something that would work without doing all the intersections there at Ash Street along the way. So, well, one intersection probably isn't going to slow traffic down very much.
So we've got the one stop sign on Ash in New York by the park. It's not on the map, it's the other direction.
Yeah, that, I believe was noted by the manager specifically as it's a different style of parking. It's not traditional parking. The park is right there. It's a little more heavily traveled.
Yeah.
So again, part of the concern from Mr. Fletcher was the use of that stretch of the 1 and 200 blocks of East Vermont Avenue. There's a lot of traffic, takes you, GPS or not, it's the last point to get across the train tracks, right? So it's heavily used, and more so 2 times a day, the morning and the evenings.
It's always has been.
Yeah, and the congestion of getting 2 vehicles down the road because, so that was a part of the concern as well. But I think the recommendation in general was to not really make any change to it.
Okay.
Chief, how easy is it to get this type of extended speed summary? Seems like there are a couple of places within our town where people are concerned about speed on streets. I heard for the first time from a resident in West Southern Pines about an area where she said that apparently there are a lot of trucks passing through doing construction stuff and they just zoom through, because, they figure, well, I'm on my way to a job or whatever. So I don't know. This is good data.
We have 3 signs, and we put them out in priority as far as some roads where we know we keep them frequently that we have speeding issues on, and if we get citizen requests for speed studies, or even sometimes planning or streets department, we'll put one of those signs out and collect data in both directions. Yeah, but to really be effective, it has to be out at least for a week in one direction, and traffic, the sign's only capable of collecting traffic coming towards the sign, so that's why we'll have to flip it to the other side of the road sometimes to get that data as well.
I want to interject just one thing, not that this has any bearing on this request or any of the other requests, but our complaints about traffic in neighborhoods actually increased from July through, I'll say, into September. And part of that we figured out was because Pennsylvania Avenue was closed.
Yeah.
So as a reminder, I don't know this has anything to do with it or any of the other ones, but as a reminder, we feel like some of those concerns from citizens have started to drop off a little bit. Again, not tying that to this, but one of those, Pennsylvania Avenue closure created some issues.
Well, and also, if the speed limit is 35 and the 85th percentile is 26, changing the speed limit isn't going to have any effect unless you make it 15. But, everybody's driving below the speed limit anyway,
Most people, yeah.
so.
Do you have an opinion as to whether or not the truck traffic that Mr. Fletcher is complaining about is a result of all the construction that's being done at Phoenix?
I think that's more of, you could speculate that. We do have a lot of construction, sure.
Right. I just wondered. I didn't know whether you had any sense of that. I appreciate the insight about Pennsylvania having been shut down and traffic having to divert in different ways, and I'm wondering if that is maybe something we are living through that will eventually end.
The construction traffic?
Right.
I think so, yeah. It's logical, right? If you're coming down Indiana Avenue or Connecticut or wherever you're coming from, and your last point of turn to get to Midland Road is going to be that road.
Right.
Yeah, that's where most of them are going to go.
That makes sense. Right. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So for now, no action taken on Vermont, and we'll reassess, or I guess continue to keep this in our discussion when it comes to golf carts. And also, when the sign is turned around and you're getting traffic the opposite direction, would just someone follow back up with us, I guess? Or at least send it out by
Where it's
email.
posted right now? Absolutely, yeah. I think by the end of this week, maybe, it might be the full week or so that we can print that report and PDF and email it out.
I think email's great. And then, Deborah, if you've got a specific place, just communicate with Nick on.
Yeah,
on where-
definitely. I need to get back to that neighbor, especially in light of what you said, Mike. So, yeah.
Okay. Chief, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, that brings us to the end of our meeting, the last session of Council Roundtable. I tend to go from my left, so I'm going to start from my right. Ms. Gray, do you have anything for roundtable?
Just big kudos. Chief Paul Dory is walking out the door. He and one of his officers were kind enough to come to a little school called the Heritage Creative Arts School and make a presentation. That was just wonderful. I can't say enough about our town. I know we handle the business of the town, but there are real lives here, real people with real stress, real issues. And when people from the town are able to really interact with regular folk in the town, it makes a huge difference. And when you impact the life of a young person to the point where they want to become a detective, I think it's pretty wonderful. So that was really great news. And trying to think what else has happened in the last month. Lots of things have happened, but I think that's my biggest kudos. So, yeah.
I just have two quick things. One, I hate that she left, but I've noticed our communication, our social media posts, they've been really great. And so I wanted to give Courtney, it's our new person for that, kudos and tell her great job because of just the graphics are great, the messaging is good. So she's doing a phenomenal job. So I hate she left. Tell her she got a shout out in the roundtable. And then also a week from today is voting, and all elections are important, especially municipal. So whoever's listening, please make sure you go vote. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll skip over myself. And okay. The only thing I wanted to include was the food drive information. There's drop-off locations at Trinity Church, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this week. Pickup is Saturday. They need food donations and volunteers. In the food pantry, we have a list, which Courtney is putting online, of their most needed items, and all of that can be dropped off at the food pantry. And they work with local organizations, which we also have on our website of pickup days and times for anybody who
And the
needs.
food bank had a website to donate money, right?
Yes, and yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we heard from the food bank is they do bulk purchases. So anybody who is able to donate money, the food bank is able to buy things at a discounted price because they're buying in such large quantities. So you can donate online to them.
And when you're talking about the food pantry, you're talking about the, at the coalition? Or are you talking about?
Talking about the actual food, is it called
The food bank?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Food bank. Is it Pennsylvania or Pinehurst or Murray Hill?
It's off Murray Hill,
Murray Hill.
on the road, Sandy Road is the name of the road. Sandy Avenue.
So great minds think alike, and I too talked with the food bank today and asked them what they most needed. They first of all need advocacy to try to take care of the issue. I was listening to the radio on the way here. I understand Jeff Jackson has in fact filed suit to try to release the funds that should be available for North Carolina, but they're not. The food that, with the representative at the food bank that I talked with, that they most needed was protein. They can take frozen food as long as it's unopened and frozen when they receive it. So cans of beans and frozen meats and fish, canned fish, those sorts of things would be a huge help. And that was my intent. My instinct is always to go buy dozens of eggs and drop them off, which I've done before at the refrigerator over in West Southern Pines, but that doesn't really help a homeless person a whole lot, or a person who doesn't have as challenged as far as housing goes. Another just shout out that is kind of like a help. Earl Wright, who many of you know, has done years of having the bicycle giveaway on Christmas morning. Earl is without a place to be able to do that. And I asked him what he needed. He needs a large space that has lighting and a bathroom. He needs it for 2 months. He has lots of bikes that have been dropped off at his home, but at this moment, it looks like Santa Claus is not coming to town for kids who need bikes. So I'm throwing that out there everywhere I go, just saying if anybody knows of a large space that has both lights and a bathroom and would be willing to donate that for a 2-month period, Earl would make a lot of kids happy at Christmas time or holiday time. I asked him if he needed heat. He said heat is not required. He can work in the cold. And he's got a group of volunteers and bicycles, and they're ready to roll. And I know there was an article in the paper about the hangar at the airport, which apparently did not have either the bathroom or the lights. I'm not sure which one, but for whatever reason, that didn't work. So Earl Wright is in a pretty desperate situation. If anybody listening or anybody here knows of a warehouse facility with lights and bathroom, who'd be willing to donate that for a couple months. I'm really interested in reiterating my concern last time about at least let's try out if those two of you who are on MPO, if you can get an attempted light from May Street onto Indiana, and I drew a map for Brandon. And if we could make that happen, I think that would really release a whole lot of the pressure there at that corner.
That's been submitted as a prioritized item.
It's been submitted to what, sorry?
It's been submitted as a prioritized item, as we mentioned last month.
Yeah, I would love to, I don't know that it was submitted as a prioritized item with that possible solution, and I love having a possible solution.
Yeah, I don't think it was, but it also seems like a keep it simple.
Yeah.
Good solution.
Yeah,
You know, and it's like, when you drew it, I was like, I mean,
That
that
makes
could
sense.
possibly work.
Yeah, so I would love for the KISS theory to kick in and for us to do the keep it stupid simple, or keep it simple stupid, or all the above. Keep it stupid simple, yeah. I think we are keeping it stupid simple. I'd like to reverse that. I'm really interested in having a policy in regard to committee appointments. I think that would be a really good thing. I spent some time at the West Southern Pines Trunk or Treat and was fortunate enough to get to talk to some folks who border the park. And I had brought up before that I think it would be really helpful if we had motion lights and even a camera at the park. There were times in the last 2 years where someone vandalized the equipment there and then took pieces of the base that they'd pulled up at the help me. The what? I'm over at Hines Park in my brain. No, I'm not talking about the Dream Court. The Dream Court's been untouched. Yeah, the base under the water. Yeah, right. Okay. So they were pulling that up and throwing it over the fence into the pool. And I talked with a lot of people who bordered that park because my concern had been, would lights or cameras bother you? And they said, no, bring them on. And by the way, and this one goes out to Parks and Rec, they said we had a couple times, 2 times they could remember when movies were offered, those outdoor movies were offered in the West Southern Pines Park, and they loved it. And I said, what movie do you want to see? And they said, we don't care, just a movie for the kids would be great. So I know we're pretty good about Parks and Rec is pretty good. And I see you taking notes, Mike, and I appreciate that. If you can pass that on, I'd love to know and attend that. But lots of positive feedback there. I continue to be on my tear about transportation. I know that that's mostly a county thing. I'd love to see the town throw a tiny bit of money for town residents as far as the transportation goes. And I'd like to be able to finish too, please. And I think it's really important that we note that.
I've talked to Tom Adams.
Great. Thank you. I'm glad you got that in. But I think.
If you want a solution, you can call Tom Adams and work towards a solution, which is exactly what I did, but you continue to bring it up without a solution. So I'm just saying, you can keep bringing it up, or I called Tom Adams.
I continue to be concerned about that, and I was really concerned about the fact that I was at a medical appointment the other day with a woman who was there from Jackson Hamlet who waited 2.5 hours to be picked up by the county. So that's really discouraging. And she had her little token. I got to see one of the tokens that she had, And the last thing I want to say is that after reaching out to the mayor who solved the problem and the past mayor, Carol Haney, and many others, I did finally get connected with Central Pines, who had my email wrong, and so I had not been notified. And Bill, I appreciate you passing things on. But I did attend that meeting last week in Durham, and it was really cool, and I ended up being there for that session because they were doing 3 of their top plums. And one of them was the grant that they helped write for the AME Trinity, which was just pretty fabulous. So shout out to Rachel Mann. I hope it gets back to her, but she is the one who actually touched base with them. I had a pretty extensive conversation with Lindsay Whitson, who had helped with writing that grant. And she, shout out to Vincent Gordon, shout out to Paul Murphy, but mostly shout out to Rachel, who, and maybe Reagan, I'm not sure the history about how that happened, but that was a very cool thing to be there for. Great meeting, and great food, great people. So that's fun, and I understand what the schedule is. Should I still be on the council, I'm happy to continue doing that. It's really helpful. There were also programs on street medicine that Durham is undertaking, which is interesting when you're dealing with unsheltered neighbors. And the doctors who are working on that, who've been given the grant to work on that, are actually attending to people in tents and making sure that medical care is in place, and also the Safe Streets and Roads project that's been going on in yet another town that I forget which one. But again, the grant money is coming to a screeching halt. I did ask about whether or not the grant money that was there for AME Trinity was still in place. It's apparently still in place. Cross your fingers, say a prayer, do whatever you do to tell the universe to keep it going. And that grant was near a maximum amount, around $750,000. I think it was $749,000. So that was an honor to be there, and an honor to hear more good things about our friend Rachel and what an impact she had had. So, so there we go. That's it.
Thanks. Brandon?
Was there anything else you wanted to add on the
No.
discussion?
No.
Tom?
I told him that I would help him come up with a solution, and he said that he will call on me when they start working towards something. We talked about a couple options, which I have run by Reagan and maybe you. I don't even know now. Yeah.
Just for clarity, wasn't it Planner Mason Maddox that was working on the Trinity AME Zion Church?
He took over when Rachel left, yes.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't hear you. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I only have two things, and one is, I briefly talked with Chief Cameron about this before the meeting. It's probably been 5 or 6 months ago, I mentioned in a work session about what the process was for reporting streetlights that aren't working anymore. And the Boot Fest thing downtown was amazing and hugely supported by the kids and the families. But someone did say something to me about the number of streetlights that were out in downtown. So I rode down Broad Street, and there were 16 lights on Broad Street, the decorative post, that were either out or nearly out. 10 of them were on the east side of Broad Street, 6 were on the west side of Broad Street, and then there's one big light at Connecticut and Broad that's out. I didn't count that one. And then on one block, every light was out but one, the block between New York and Massachusetts, New York, on the east New York and east Massachusetts. So, and go ahead. You go ahead and talk about that.
So we have a process, and I will say, I don't want to say it's exactly once a year, but almost once a year, because a lot of staff is not working at night. As you know, the police department is kind of our eyes and ears for those kind of things. And they do an audit, and obviously, as I told Councilman Goodman, we will probably have them go ahead and do a ride the entire town, give us locations, give us poll numbers, and we don't maintain the lights, but we do send that information to Duke Energy, comes in and makes those repairs.
To citizens, it is easy. You can go on Duke's website, you put in the poll number that's on there, and it gets into the work order system. But 16 on Broad Street over 6 blocks seems to be a lot. I didn't go down any side streets, but I just wanted to bring that up to the top of mind for staff to try to get that resolved. And then the second thing I want to talk about, and actually thank you for getting the stop bar and the added signs at Fairway and 22. There was, we talked about this previously, I think, and there was a wreck there a few weeks ago where someone was injured. And there was another one a few days ago, but it wasn't at that intersection, was it?
It was just before you get to the intersection. So there was a car turning onto Fairway when that happened. And it was a rear-end collision, so not directly related to a stop sign or stop bar. That kind of stuff.
Officer Berry says that was a texting issue. Yeah.
So what has been done is there's been a stop bar
placed on both sides of Fairway Drive as it intersects with Central. There is also a stop sign, a head sign that has been added further down Fairway to alert you that there's a stop sign ahead if you're not paying attention. And then the thing that I'll let Chief Cameron expand on a little bit is there's the plan to put the vertical reflectors on the pole. So when you're driving down the road towards Central, it's not just the sign that's reflective, the pole will be reflective too.
Yeah, those are also decorative poles out there. So we work with street department staff. We've looked at it. We've ordered a reflective tape that will go on that pole. We're trying to do vertical, but it may end up being horizontal. But we're working through that where there will be reflective on the pole, just to kind of catch your attention, hopefully a little bit sooner, that there is a stop sign there.
And so I've driven down Fairway, coming from like McDeed's Creek to Central. And if you're distracted for any purpose, it does look like Fairway just keeps on going. And there is some site issues of this on the DOT side looking left. But I know there's a process going on with them. But anyway, thanks to the town for getting that done. I've talked to a few neighbors that live over that area, and they're very thankful that the town's gotten done what it's gotten done in the past few weeks. And I just wanted to thank the town and also let them know that there's more to come. Thanks. That's all I have, Mayor.
I think Bill had one more thing.
One last thing, and this may be obvious, but I know Beth's involved sometimes in extra things. For our post-election inductions, we got work session on the 18th and regular business on the December 9th. And my tenure on council, we've done it at both. We've sworn people in at both types of meetings. So do we have which of those dates we're going to do it? Because you do like snacks sometimes before those special meetings, or maybe it wasn't you, but which one are we aiming for?
I don't think we've discussed that.
Usually the induction would be at the business meeting.
So the December the 9th?
Yes,
Okay.
that's where.
Was that?
Because I know in the past, for whatever reason, we did one of them in this room at a work session one time, and it may have just been the way the calendar worked out.
It may have been, because typically I do think she's right that we do
Okay.
those at the business meeting, unless you've got.
Nope, I just want to make sure, because I know you have to plan, and if anybody asks, I wanted to know which one of those. All right,
Typically, they do have snacks and stuff,
Okay.
but we'll.
thank you.
I just want to add one more thing too. I know this is on my list too. I just wanted to thank Mr. Haskell for his interest in the community and putting in your application for the planning board. Congratulations.
All right, thank you. If there is a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. We'll see you guys again on the 6th.
There was one here, I think it might have been.
Turn this off.